Chapter 1028, Killing Malevolent Earth. Chapter 1028, Killing Malevolent Earth. Monk Formless died. There was a momentary pause on the battlefield. The three titular disciples faced Su Zimo, and none of them made any rash moves. Dao being Heavenly Dipper and the other two had conflicted expressions. For titular disciples tried to kill a Dao being who had just entered the void reversion realm, but one of them was killed instead. Gazing at Su Zimo's back view and the battered corpse of Monk Formless at his feet, the three of them felt the urge to retreat for the first time. However, they could not retreat. After all, the three of them were titular disciples and the reputation of the major sections. The outcome of this battle had not been decided yet. If they chose to flee for their lives, the sects they belonged to would become the laughing stock of the entire cultivation world. Furthermore, in their opinion, even though Su Zimo managed to defend against the earlier fight and even killed Monk Formless, he was almost done with his trump cards. After all, he had just entered the void reversion realm. How long could he last? How much Dharmic powers did he have left after releasing so many powerful Dharmic arts? Most importantly, they believed that Dean was definitely rushing over after such a huge commotion here. Once Dean arrived, Su Zimo would definitely die. Unfortunately, Dao being Heavenly Dipper and the other two did not know that at the moment, Dean's attention was entirely focused on Lin Xuanji. In the Dao inheritance ground, one of them gave chase while the other fled for a full 20 days. Although Lin Xuanji could not defeat Dean head-on, he had many random tricks up his sleeves, and it was extremely difficult for Dean to kill him as well. In the past 20 days, Dean had caught up to Lin Xuanji several times. However, the latter used many strange and mysterious methods to escape. Outside the Three Tribulations domain, the wind howled and blood chi filled the air. After killing Monk Formless, Su Zimo turned around slowly and looked at Dao being Heavenly Dipper, Dao being Zephyr Thunder, and Dao being Malevolent Earth with a cold gaze. For some reason, the three of them felt an inexplicable pressure when they met Su Zimo's gaze. They were titular disciples. How could they feel pressure from the gaze of anyone of the same cultivation realm? Su Zimo moved. He walked slowly towards the three of them at a steady pace. As he strode over, the three of them felt a suffocating pressure envelop them. A massive shadow seemed to appear above the three of them. I have some grudges with Heavenly Dipper Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace, so it's normal for their titular disciples to hunt me down? Su Zimo turned to look at Dao being Malevolent Earth and asked indifferently, "What is Malevolent Earth sect here for?" "You're a fiend demon, so you deserve to be hunted by everyone." Dao being Malevolent Earth replied coldly. "Oh." Su Zimo nodded. "Fine then. You can die now." The moment he said that, Su Zimo's figure flashed, and he charged towards Dao being Malevolent Earth with the creation green lotus in hand. Dao being Malevolent Earth's expression turned cold as he reacted swiftly and retrieved the Mystic Magnet Mountain from his storage bag. The Mystic Magnet Mountain was one of the unique treasures. Although it did not affect the creation green lotus, it was impossible for the creation green lotus to shatter it as well. Kill. Dao being Zephyr Thunder and Dao being Heavenly Dipper attacked at the same time. There was no way they could let Dao being Malevolent Earth die as well. If Dao being Malevolent Earth were to fall, only the two of them would be left. Even if Dao being Hidden Death was included, they would most likely be doomed. Boom! Dao being Malevolent Earth tossed out the Mystic Magnet Mountain. The Malevolent Earth blood on the Mystic Magnet Mountain had long been washed away, and it expanded against the wind, forming a tall mountain peak that shielded Dao being Malevolent Earth. Dao being Malevolent Earth sneered internally. No matter how strong the creation green lotus was, it could not shatter a unique treasure. Rulai Dharmic Seal. Right then, Dao being Malevolent Earth, who was hiding behind the Mystic Magnet Mountain, heard a voice. Su Zimo chanted Sanskrit, and the void trembled. A golden light shone on his glabella, and his divine spirit consciousness condensed rapidly, forming a golden swastika symbol. The appearance of that ancient word seemed to be able to freeze the void and suppress it. A divine aura emanated. Against that aura, the essence spirit in Dao being Malevolent Earth's consciousness shuddered and wanted to kneel and submit. Essence spirit secret skill? Dao being Zephyr Thunder and Dao being Heavenly Dipper exclaimed with widened eyes when they saw the golden symbol. They had not expected that Su Zimo would be able to use an Essence Spirit secret skill the moment he entered the Void Reversion realm. Furthermore, the might of that Essence Spirit secret skill made both of them shudder in fear. Rulai Dharmic Seal. The Essence Spirit secret skill in the Great Day Rulai Sutra was extremely powerful, and normally, it could only be released by a Dharma characteristics Essence Spirit. Back in Thousand Demon Valley, Su Zimo had tried releasing it once against the pursuit of the Overlord of Levitating Goat Peak. If Dao Lord Extreme Fire had not acted in time and injected the power of his Essence Spirit into the Dharmic Seal, he would have died in Thousand Demon Valley. The power of the Rulai Dharmic Seal released was indeed terrifying. An Overlord was killed by that tiny golden word. This time round, Su Zimo had advanced to the Void Reversion realm. With the help of the 3 top-tier cultivation techniques of the Immortal, Buddhist, and Fiend sects, his black-haired Essence Spirit's spirit consciousness could extend 500 kilometers and was comparable to the Essence Spirit of a Dharma characteristic. Therefore, he attempted to release the Rulai Dharmic Seal again. However, he had still underestimated the requirements of the Rulai Dharmic Seal on the Essence Spirit. Although the golden word was successfully condensed, the black-haired Essence Spirit's light dimmed and was nearly sucked dry by the golden word. Su Zimo felt a wave of dizziness and his body swayed. It was way too scary. Su Zimo was secretly shocked. The power of his Essence Spirit was still insufficient. He could not use this Essence Spirit secret skill so casually in the future. He could only attempt it if his cultivation realm increased by 1 or 2 levels, and the power of his Essence Spirit was raised. Malevolent Earth, watch out. Dao being Zephyr Thunder reminded hurriedly. In midair, the golden word shone brightly and charged towards the Mystic Magnet Mountain. A Dharmic weapon like the Mystic Magnet Mountain could not defend against an Essence Spirit secret skill at all. In the blink of an eye, the golden word passed through the Mystic Magnet Mountain and descended before Dao being Malevolent Earth. The golden word advanced, and the void was collapsing. That golden word carried an aura that could suppress and destroy everything as it collided head-on. Dao being Malevolent Earth's pupils constricted. He clearly knew that this was a terrifying Essence Spirit secret skill, but he could not defend against it. He had just released his Essence Spirit secret skill and could not condense it again within a short period of time. In the blink of an eye, the golden word imprinted itself on Dao being Malevolent Earth's glabella and disappeared instantly. Dao being Malevolent Earth shuddered. The next moment, his gaze turned dull and lifeless. His expression froze and his life force drained rapidly. The surroundings were so silent that a pin drop could be heard. All the cultivators widened their eyes and opened their mouths slightly, looking at Dao being Malevolent Earth in shock. Thump. Under countless gazes, Dao being Malevolent Earth fell to the ground. He laid on the ground without any wounds on his body at all. However, he was lifeless and no different from a corpse. His life force had dissipated entirely. Dao being Malevolent Earth's consciousness was calm and silent as well. His Essence Spirit had already been crushed into dust by the golden word and dissipated within his consciousness. His Essence Spirit was destroyed. The titular disciple of Malevolent Earth sect was killed by the Rulai Dharmic Seal and died. Chapter 1029. Killing titular disciples like slaying dogs. Chapter 1029. Killing titular disciples like slaying dogs. In the blink of an eye, Monk Formless and Dao being Malevolent Earth, 2 great titular disciples, died. Outside the 3 tribulations domain, there was silence. Many cultivators who were watching looked at Su Zimo in horror, as though they had seen a ghost. Nobody expected that Su Zimo, who had returned after merely 20 days, would be so domineering. For titular disciples joined forces while Dao being hidden death hid in the vicinity, awaiting an opportunity to strike. Yet, the outcome was the death of 2 titular disciples. The number 1 monster incarnate in history had truly risen. Many cultivators had the same thought. They were not the only ones. At that moment, Dao Being Heavenly Dipper and Dao Being Zephyr Thunder's eyes were filled with shock as well. The tides are on the side of that person. Who can suppress him in the Dao inheritance ground? At that moment, both of their hearts shuddered. There were already 4 titular disciples who died in Su Zimo's hands. The tides were forged in his favor with the blood of titular disciples, who could match his invincible might. When a butcher killed many dogs, an invisible aura would form around him. Any dog with a bit of intelligence would be able to sense it and not dare to get close. Once a butcher's eyes widened, even the fiercest dog would have to flee with its tail between its legs. But now, Su Zimo was killing titular disciples. He killed titular disciples like he was killing dogs. At the same time that he used his Essence Spirit secret skill to kill Dao Being Malevolent Earth, Su Zimo's Essence Spirit became extremely weak, and he even felt dizzy. He stood on the spot motionlessly. In reality, this was the only chance for Dao Being Zephyr Thunder, Dao Being Heavenly Dipper, and Dao Being Hidden Death to attack. Unfortunately, the 3 of them were stunned by the scene of Dao Being Malevolent Earth's death. They hesitated and did not make a move to either fight or retreat. Su Zimo stood quietly for a moment and snapped out of his stupor. Swallowing a few elixirs, he put away the mystic magnet mountain and strode towards Dao Being Heavenly Dipper with a cold gaze. Although the 3 of them were hesitant, Su Zimo was a decisive person. Those titular disciples did not care about their reputation and joined forces to kill him in the Dao inheritance ground, causing Demonist Ji and Mingzhan to barely survive, and he almost died as well. The moment he walked out of the 3 Tribulations domain, he was prepared to start a massacre. Dao Being Heavenly Dipper was a titular disciple after all, and calmed down swiftly when he saw Su Zimo charging over. In his eyes, stars flickered and transformed in a mysterious manner. Su Zimo, you've just entered the Void Reversion Realm. How much strength and methods do you have left after the consecutive battles? Dao Being Heavenly Dipper hollered with a domineering might. His words were also a reminder to Dao Being Zephyr Thunder and Dao Being Hidden Death, who were hiding in the shadows. He wanted the 2 of them to be resolute and continue working together to kill Su Zimo. It's enough to kill you. Su Zimo arrived before Dao Being Heavenly Dipper with a murderous aura. Waving his left hand, the creation green lotus shone brightly and tore through the void, releasing streams of chaos chi towards Dao Being Heavenly Dipper. Dao Being Heavenly Dipper was shocked. Although the green and crystalline lotus looked fragile enough to be broken with a single attack, its might was terrifying and could even shatter Khanate Dao Being Dharmic weapons. This was how Dharmic weapons increased the combat strength of a cultivator. Many times, a powerful Dharmic weapon could even help cultivators kill those above their level. Dao Being Heavenly Dipper's eyes flickered with a calm expression. First, he channeled the ancient legacy of his sect, the astral elephant saber, and slashed it at the creation green lotus. Thereafter, he gripped Heaven Splitter tightly with his other hand and thrust it towards Su Zimo's chest. Saber intent burst forth. Although the astral elephant saber was also a Khanate Dao Being Dharmic weapon, it had been passed down through the ages and could not destroy the might of the creation green lotus with a single slash. Furthermore, Dao Being Heavenly Dipper's counterattack was not merely a passive defense. There was also the retaliation of Heaven Splitter. 2 gigantic stars appeared in Dao Being Heavenly Dipper's eyes, replacing his pupils. All of a sudden, 2 beams of starlight shot out from Dao Being Heavenly Dipper's eyes without warning, piercing towards Su Zimo's face. Astral Eye. This was the inheritance visual technique of Heavenly Dipper sect and was extremely powerful. Even though he was faced with the invincible tides forged after killing 4 titular disciples, Dao Being Heavenly Dipper showed no fear and released all his trump cards with a powerful counterattack. When he saw that, Dao Being Zephyr Thunder's eyes flashed with lightning. Narrowing his gaze, he made up his mind and charged towards Su Zimo's side. Dao Being Heavenly Dipper's methods were suffocating. After all, there was only a single creation green lotus. If the 2 of them cooperated well, they could definitely kill Su Zimo here. SK, SK, TSK. The moment the stars appeared in Dao Being Heavenly Dipper's eyes, Su Zimo's right eye shone with sword lights. The sword lights formed a sword formation in midair. It was the Illumination sword formation. The starlight descended and collided with the sword formation, causing a loud bang. The sword formation dissipated immediately and starlight scattered in a bedazzling manner. Dao, being Heavenly Dipper, only felt his vision blur and narrowed his eyes instinctively. When he opened his eyes again, his body shuddered as though he was pulled by some mysterious force, and he dodged to the side. The two sabers seemed like they were about to leave his hands, as well as the saber intent that he had just condensed dissipated instantly. A gray mountain stood beside Su Zimo, exuding a mysterious aura as it sucked Dao, being Heavenly Dipper's two sabers. The moment Dao, being Zephyr Thunder, arrived behind Su Zimo, the hammer in his hands tilted and he staggered, almost being dragged by the Mystic Magnet Mountain as well. It was the ancient unique treasure, the Mystic Magnet Mountain. After killing Dao, being Malevolent Earth, Su Zimo had already retrieved the treasure. By releasing it at this critical moment, he instantly undid the combined attack of the two titular disciples. Even though the attacks of the two titular disciples stopped, Su Zimo's movements did not pause at all. The jade-green Lotus platform fell and smashed towards Dao, being Heavenly Dipper's head. At that moment, Dao, being Heavenly Dipper, wielded two sabers that were drawn in by the Mystic Magnet Mountain, causing it to seem as though he was stuck in a swamp. If he did not let go, there was no way he could avoid the creation green Lotus. However, if he let go, he would lose two connate Dharmic weapons. In the blink of an eye, Dao, being Heavenly Dipper, made a decision. He released his grip and abandoned his connate Dharmic weapons, retreating in a bid to escape. Right then, a strange black light shone in Su Zimo's eyes. Caught off guard, Dao, being Heavenly Dipper, exchanged glances with him and his mind went blank momentarily. Heavenly Fiend Eye. Starlight shone brightly in Dao, being Heavenly Dipper's spirit consciousness, creating massive waves. Dao, being Heavenly Dipper, jolted awake instantly. Another visual technique. Out of fright, Dao, being Heavenly Dipper, broke out in cold sweat. If it was anyone else, even if they were not controlled by the Heavenly Fiend Eye, they would not be able to wake up so quickly. However, it was already too late for Dao, being Heavenly Dipper, to escape from the attack range of the creation green Lotus with that slight delay. He tugged his waist and crushed a jade accessory that hung on it. Swoosh! A bedazzling light flashed and enveloped him. Protection Dharmic weapon. Boom! At the same time that the protection Dharmic weapon was formed, the creation green Lotus struck it with a loud bang. Crack! 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 The creation green Lotus shattered the barrier of the protection Dharmic weapon with a single attack. Dao, being Heavenly Dipper, seized the opportunity to retreat. Su Zimo flicked his wrist, and the creation green Lotus spun in his palm. The seemingly weak lotus leaf brushed past Dao, being Heavenly Dipper's throat gently. Shing! A stream of blood spewed out. Dao, being Heavenly Dipper's head was sliced off neatly. The edges of the lotus leaf were sharper than divine weapons. Chapter 1030, Pursuit. Chapter 1030, Pursuit. Although Dao, being Heavenly Dipper, was a titular disciple with rich experience and knowledge, he knew nothing about the creation green Lotus. Or rather, not many people in the cultivation world knew about the creation green Lotus. Dao, being Heavenly Dipper, had not expected that the thin and crystalline lotus leaf would possess such a terrifying lethality. This method of killing was truly unconstrained and unreasonable. However, the outcome was extremely cruel. His head was severed and his body was crippled. A small glowing human flew out from the head. Dao, being Heavenly Dipper's essence spirit, had a frightened expression and wanted to escape like a stray dog. Om. Su Zimo chanted Sanskrit and the damning mantra descended. Dao, being Heavenly Dipper's essence spirit, shuddered, and the light that surrounded it dimmed significantly. Ma. The damning mantra sounded again. Dao, being Heavenly Dipper's body, shuddered once more, and the light on his essence spirit became almost negligible. And I. Pa. Su Zimo did not pause at all and released 4 Sanskrit words of the damning mantra consecutively, not giving Dao, being Heavenly Dipper, any chance to catch his breath. Dao being Heavenly Dipper's essence spirit paused in midair step by step. He had just taken 4 steps when cracks appeared on his essence spirit. Without the protection of his body, his essence spirit could not withstand the repeated attacks of the 4 Sanskrit words of the damning mantra, and his life force vanished as he fell from midair. Dao being Heavenly Dipper was dead. The initially restless crowd had already quietened down and was silent. All the cultivators held their breaths and focused, as though they were oppressed by an indescribable aura. None of them dared to speak, afraid that a catastrophe would befall them. Including Dao being Heavenly Dipper, there were already 5 titular disciples who died in the Dao inheritance ground. Furthermore, all of them died in the hands of a single person. What was even more frightening was that the number might increase further. Dao being Zephyr Thunder was retreating. A look of panic finally appeared in his eyes. He did not want any treasures or the Purple Thunder manual anymore. It did not matter even if he was disgraced. Right now, he only wanted to leave the Dao inheritance ground alive. This place was a nightmare for the titular disciples. Right then, Su Zimo turned around slowly, and his gaze landed on Dao being Zephyr Thunder's face. It was as cold as a knife and chilling to the bones. Dao being Zephyr Thunder realized that he might not be able to escape. Desolate Marshal, you've killed way too many people this time round. Dao being Zephyr Thunder suddenly spoke. Oh. Su Zimo raised his brow and asked, so what? Dao being Zephyr Thunder said, titular disciples have an extremely high status in the super sections. While the super sects might not be bothered if normal cultivators in the sect were killed, they will definitely not let you off if the titular disciples are killed. By now, there are already 5 titular disciples that have fallen in your hands. This means that you've already offended 5 super sects. 100 Refinement sect alone won't be able to protect you. If Extreme Fire is stubborn, the only outcome will be for 100 Refinement sect to be destroyed along with you. Su Zimo's expression was calm as he asked with a fake smile, so? Dao being Zephyr Thunder was enraged. He had said so much, but Su Zimo did not take it seriously at all. Given his status and reputation in the cultivation world, who would dare to be so rude and look down on him? However, he suppressed his anger very quickly. Given the pressing circumstances, he could only swallow everything. Dao being Zephyr Thunder took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, therefore, you've already killed enough titular disciples. If you attack me as well, you'll have to face the revenge of the 6 super sections. You won't be able to take it. Oh. Su Zimo replied indifferently and said in a nonchalant manner, so what? I'll kill as many as they come. The reason why I'm at this level today is because I've trampled on the corpses of countless paragons. Foo-foo. Dao being Zephyr Thunder laughed as well. Desolate Marshal, I don't think you understand what I mean. If the 6 super sects want to take revenge, they won't send void reversions after you. They're going to send Dharma characteristics and conjoint bodies. The crowd stirred. Many cultivators knew that Dao being Zephyr Thunder's words were not meant to scare Su Zimo. The death of a titular disciple was definitely a major event for the super sects. It was normal for Dharma characteristic Dao Lords or conjoint body mighty figures to appear. There's something that I've never understood. Su Zimo smiled faintly and asked, in the Dao inheritance ground, you guys were the ones who ganged up on me but were killed instead. How can the sects behind you have the cheek to seek revenge on me or even send forth Dharma characteristics and conjoint bodies? Dao being Zephyr Thunder felt a burning sensation on his face. Under normal circumstances, in the cultivation world, even if someone was killed in a fight between cultivators of the same cultivation realm, experts of the sect would not show themselves. That was because the escalation of the conflict might result in a chaotic battle between 2 major sects or even multiple factions, and the situation would get out of hand. Throughout history, there have been countless such painful lessons. Therefore, generally speaking, if cultivators of the same cultivation realm were to fight, even if one of them were to die, it would only be because their skills were inferior and no experts of the sect would seek revenge. However, Su Zimo's situation was different. Behind him was a declining 100 Refinement sect. However, 100 Refinement sect was only one of the unorthodox groups. Even if there was an expert like Extreme Fire, there was no way he could stop super sects like the Immortal, Buddhist, and Fiend sects. Most importantly, Su Zimo had already formed a feud with the super sections. They would definitely not allow such a terrifying monster incarnate to grow. Out of fear, the super sects would definitely take action. If such a monster incarnate were to enter the Dharma characteristic realm, there wouldn't be many people in the cultivation world who could subdue him. No matter what, you've already offended so many sections. It's not good for you to incur the wrath of my Zephyr Thunder Palace as well, Dao being Zephyr Thunder said in a deep voice. Although he said it beautifully, many cultivators could tell that Dao being Zephyr Thunder was begging for mercy. Su Zimo sneered internally. Even if he wanted to stop, Zephyr Thunder Palace would not let him off. As long as he did not hand over the Purple Thunder Manual, Zephyr Thunder Palace would continue to hunt him down. There's something you didn't get right? Su Zimo looked at Dao being Zephyr Thunder and said slowly, since I've already offended so many sects, I don't mind adding your sect in as well. Crack. In a flash of lightning, Su Zimo had already vanished from the spot and was charging towards Dao being Zephyr Thunder. Zephyr Thunder escape. Dao being Zephyr Thunder seemed to be prepared for this. Without saying a word, he swept his body with a violent gust of wind and burst forth with lightning before turning to flee. The two cultivators were extremely fast and passed through the crowd instantly. Suddenly, a gigantic pair of Dharmic power wings grew from Su Zimo's back. Ethereal wings was a secret skill comprehended by an ancient mighty figure through observing the Rakshasa race. Although its speed was far from the frightening speed of the Rakshasa race, coupled with lightning escape, Su Zimo's speed doubled once again. Kill! He roared and thunderclap, kill burst forth. Boom! Dao being Zephyr Thunder felt as though a thunderclap had exploded in his ears and the blood chi in his body churned. It was extremely uncomfortable and his movement technique slowed down. That delay allowed Su Zimo to catch up from behind. Waving the creation green lotus in his hands, it shone brightly and smashed down towards Dao being Zephyr Thunder. Chapter 1031. Soul Search. Chapter 1031. Soul Search. Desolate Marshal, you've gone too far. Dao being Zephyr Thunder twisted his body in midair with widened eyes. With a long roar, he swung his hammer and struck towards the creation green lotus. Boom! The creation green lotus collided against the Zephyr Thunder hammer with a loud bang. The Zephyr Thunder hammer was a legacy Dharmic weapon of the ancient era of the Zephyr Thunder Palace. Although the creation green lotus was powerful, it could not destroy the former with a single strike. However, things were not looking great for Dao being Zephyr Thunder. The power of the creation green lotus surged into his body through the Zephyr Thunder hammer, causing his body to fall rapidly and his arm that held the Zephyr Thunder hammer to tremble slightly. In melee combat, he was no match for Su Zimo at all. Furthermore, Su Zimo possessed a killing weapon like the creation green lotus. Apocalyptic Five Thunders. As Dao being Zephyr Thunder retreated, he conjured hand seals and released the legacy phenomenon of Zephyr Thunder Palace in the form of a Dharmic art. Bang! Boom! Boom! In the firmaments, the dark clouds were thick and heavy like lead, shimmering with streaks of lightning. A dull thunder rumbled as though a god was riding on a chariot. There were a total of 5 divine thunderbolts. Each one was more terrifying than the last. If 5 of them were gathered, they would be able to destroy the world. Dao being Zephyr Thunder believed that Su Zimo had expended a lot of energy fighting the 4 titular disciples consecutively. Right now, the latter did not have much Dharmic powers left, and it would be difficult for him to defend against his apocalyptic 5 thunders. In reality, Dao being Zephyr Thunder was right. Given Su Zimo's current condition, his essence spirit was weak, and it was indeed difficult for him to form Dharmic arts. However, he had the creation green lotus. After the creation green lotus entered its mature stage, not only did its power increase tremendously, it also had many mysterious and shocking aspects. Su Zimo injected the remaining Dharmic powers in his body into the creation green lotus, and with a single thought, it expanded rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it had already surpassed Su Zimo. The gigantic Lotus floated in midair and blocked the first thunderbolt that descended with ease. That's only the first bolt. The more powerful ones are yet to come. Dao being Zephyr Thunder grit his teeth and channeled his Dharmic powers while changing hand seals. Before long, a second thunderbolt was formed beneath the dark clouds. You don't have a chance anymore, Su Zimo said indifferently. He released his grip, and under countless gazes, the creation green lotus rose rapidly towards the dark clouds in the skies. The entire world was filled by the green lotus. The stem of the lotus was green and straight as it rose into the skies. The gigantic lotus leaves blotted out the skies as though they were enveloping all the cultivators in the world. One end of the green lotus platform broke through the pitch-black clouds, and 6 layers of lotus petals bloomed layer by layer, filled with endless light. What happened was way too shocking. All the cultivators seemed incomparably tiny before the green lotus. This is the true creation green lotus. That was the only thought in the minds of many cultivators. Their eyes were widened and their mouths were agape with shock. They could no longer speak. A green lotus rose from the ground, threatening to break through the firmaments and shatter the void. The green lotus swayed and rays of light filled the skies. The entire space of the Dao inheritance ground trembled. Many cultivators had a feeling that if not for the wills of many ancient mighty figures stabilizing this space, the creation green lotus would have been able to pierce a hole in the skies. The thick, dark clouds that Dao being Zephyr Thunder created were torn apart by a simple sway of the creation green lotus. Multicolored light filled the air and punctured the dark clouds. The divine thunder vanished instantly. Before the second bolt of divine thunder descended, the apocalyptic 5 thunders was already shattered into pieces by the creation green lotus. Dao being Zephyr Thunder's face turned pale. In the face of the creation green lotus, none of the titular disciples could withstand a single blow. It was way too scary. With such a terrifying Dharmic weapon as a support, who could stop this monster incarnate in the future? Sure. A green light flashed. The creation green lotus returned to its original size and returned to Su Zimo's palm. Su Zimo's gaze was cold as he charged towards Dao being Zephyr Thunder without giving him a chance to catch his breath. What other methods do you have? Release them all. Su Zimo hollered and waved the creation green lotus, causing it to sway gently. Endless rays of light shone towards Dao being Zephyr Thunder. A look of despair flashed through Dao being Zephyr Thunder's eyes. What else could he do? Even if he was at his peak condition, he could only die here under the suppression of the creation green lotus. He suddenly felt a sense of regret. If he had retreated in time, if he had been more decisive, if he had not been so greedy, he might not have died here. Thousands of thoughts surged into his mind and turned into an indignant roar. Dao being Zephyr Thunder was a titular disciple after all and would definitely not surrender. After severing all thoughts, he swung the Zephyr Thunder hammer with both hands, creating a tornado that connected heaven and earth as he charged towards Su Zimo. Boom! The creation green lotus collided with the tornado and exploded. The tornado dissipated, and the Zephyr Thunder hammer fell to the side. Dao being Zephyr Thunder opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood as his body fell limply to the back. Suddenly, a beam of light flew out from his head and escaped into the distance. The crowd was in an uproar when they saw that. Dao being Zephyr Thunder's body was not damaged to the point where he had to abandon it. However, in order to escape, Dao being Zephyr Thunder abandoned his body and released his essence spirit, speeding into the distance at his fastest speed. Phew! Su Zimo chuckled. Dao being Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit, who had not escaped far away, suddenly paused and looked ahead in horror. In front of him and behind him were 2 shimmering green lotus seeds that shone with a sharp glint. Prior to this, 52 green lotus seeds had already returned to the lotus platform after clashing against the essence spirit secret skills of the 4 titular disciples. Of the 54 green lotus seeds, there were still 2 left. However, they were unaffected and were still emitting a glow. They transformed into 2 flying swords that blocked Dao being Zephyr Thunder. Su Zimo had expected that Dao being Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit would leave his body, and he had already released the 2 green lotus seeds. Dao being Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit stirred, and the 2 green lotus seeds chased after him. Su Zimo walked towards Dao being Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit and asked in a seemingly casual manner, "Zephyr Thunder, do you know why I left you for last?" When the 4 titular disciples besieged Su Zimo, the order of his counterattack varied. Why? At this point, Dao being Zephyr Thunder knew that he was bound to die. Instead, he calmed down and asked. Su Zimo said coolly, "That's because while you want my purple thunder manual, I want your green thunder manual as well." Ha 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 ha. Dao being Zephyr Thunder reared his head in laughter. "Desolate Marshal, oh Desolate Marshal, you're still too young. How can the storage bags of us cultivators contain secret skills exclusive to our sects? It's easy for you to kill me, but you're dreaming if you want to obtain the green thunder manual." Dao being Zephyr Thunder's eyes were filled with mockery, as though he could die in peace if Su Zimo was dealt a blow before he died. Arriving in front of Dao being Zephyr Thunder, Su Zimo grabbed his essence spirit and said indifferently, "Not necessarily." "Soul-searching art," Su Zimo called softly. Chapter 1032. Chapter 1032, Great Void Spirit Refinement Section. This was the first time Su Zimo had used the soul-searching art after devouring the essence spirit that was reborn from half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky and cultivating the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra. Although there was no offensive essence spirit dermic formulation in the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra, this essence spirit secret skill was extremely terrifying as well. If used properly, it would be extremely useful. A transparent ball of light appeared in Su Zimo's palm, and Dao being Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit was within it, filled with fear. Black Fiend Chi appeared on the surface of the ball of light and coiled around Dao being Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit as though it possessed spirit consciousness. In the blink of an eye, Dao being Zephyr Thunder's body was shrouded by a large amount of pitch-black Fiend Chi. Like chains, he was rooted to the ball of light and could not move at all. Immediately after, a large amount of unfamiliar memories surged into Su Zimo's mind. The soul-searching art was not without restrictions. If he were to search through all of Dao being Zephyr Thunder's memories, it would be the memories of a cultivator's entire life. Thousands of years were too many and complex for Su Zimo to handle. Furthermore, the soul-searching art might fail midway. The best way was to browse quickly. Insignificant memories were viewed fleetingly. He only stopped when there was useful information and took out that portion of memories to memorize. Su Zimo held the creation green lotus in his left hand and shook it gently. Lowering his head, memories flashed through his mind. As time passed, Dao being Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit within the ball of light withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. While his life force was still present, the light on his essence spirit was dimming. Dao being Zephyr Thunder let out a tragic cry within the ball of light. He felt as though something that originally belonged to him was being extracted bit by bit, irreversibly. It was an extremely uncomfortable feeling. While the soul-searching art extracted memories, it would also cause irreversible damage to the essence spirit. Therefore, even if the essence spirit survived, it would definitely lose its memories or turn into an idiot. All of a sudden, Su Zimo's eyes lit up. The memory fragments that were initially flashing through his mind suddenly stopped and began to flow slowly. It was a secret inheritance chamber in Zephyr Thunder Palace. An old man with a dignified expression handed a slightly yellowed ancient book to Dao being Zephyr Thunder. There were 3 words written on the ancient book, Green Thunder Manual. Remember, this Green Thunder Manual is not a complete cultivation technique. You have to fuse it with the Purple Thunder Manual in order to create the Great Void Spirit Refinement section. In the Great Void Spirit Refinement section, there's an essence spirit secret skill known as the Fury of Thunder, and it's extremely powerful. In the ancient era, there were countless experts from foreign races who died under the Fury of Thunder. The old man from Zephyr Thunder Palace said sternly. The scene continued. Cultivate this Green Thunder Manual here. After memorizing it, I'll return it to its original spot, said the old man from Zephyr Thunder Palace. In the scene, as Dao being Zephyr Thunder browsed through the Green Thunder Manual, Su Zimo memorized its contents as well. It was an extremely mysterious feeling. He had obtained a top-tier cultivation technique by absorbing another person's memories. If it was in the past, Su Zimo would not have dared to even think about it. Such treacherous methods were completely beyond his knowledge. After memorizing the Green Thunder Manual, Su Zimo wanted to browse through Dao being Zephyr Thunder's other memories to see if there were any powerful cultivation techniques or secret skills that he could retrieve. However, he suddenly felt the scene before him blur. Immediately after, the fiend chi within the ball of light in his palm snapped. The soul-searching art had ended. Thankfully, he browsed through it quickly and found an important part like the Green Thunder Manual. Otherwise, if he were to look at it bit by bit, the soul-searching art might have ended before he even got through the teenage memories of Dao being Zephyr Thunder. Within the ball of light, Dao being Zephyr Thunder's gaze was unfocused, and he looked like he was in a daze. There was no pity in Su Zimo's eyes as he exerted strength in his palm and crushed Dao being Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit. If he were to fall into Dao being Zephyr Thunder's hands, his outcome would be even more tragic. Dao being Zephyr Thunder was dead. At this point of the battle, the dust had already settled. Outside the Three Tribulations domain, 4 titular disciples tried to kill Su Zimo but were completely annihilated. None of them survived. Many cultivators looked at the battlefield with conflicted expressions. Sigh, I truly did not expect this to be the outcome of this battle. As expected of the strongest monster incarnate in history, I heard that his strength is even greatly restricted in the Dao inheritance ground. It's hard to imagine how strong he would be outside. Desolate Marshal wishes to establish a Dao and impart martial to all living beings. It might not be a bad thing for the cultivation world to have someone with his ambition and boldness. Fufu, how can the 6 super sects allow Dao being Desolate Marshal to continue growing after suffering such a huge loss? They will definitely kill him. Agreed. If not for the fact that the power of a conjoint body mighty figure could not penetrate the Dao inheritance ground, there might have already been some mighty figures who could not sit still. Many cultivators did not disperse and discuss softly. In reality, they were not wrong. Dao being Heavenly Dipper, Dao being Zephyr Thunder, and the other few titular disciples were dead and the cultivation world outside had long exploded. Glass Palace, Formless Monastery, Heavenly Dipper Sect, Malevolent Earth Sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace, and even Poison Sect were making huge moves, preparing to kill their way into 100 Refinement Sect. Ever since the end of that catastrophe 10,000 years ago, while the bloodshed in the cultivation world had never ended, there were rarely any major events that required a conjoint body mighty figure to make an appearance. However, this time round, more than one conjoint body mighty figure had appeared. Instantly, Tianhuang mainland was in turmoil. Middle Continent, 100 Refinement Sect. News of the Dao inheritance ground had already spread to 100 Refinement Sect. Everyone in the sect was shocked. As for 1,000 Crane Sect Spirit Cranes, they covered Tianhuang mainland. The movements of Heavenly Dipper Sect, Malevolent Earth Sect, Formless Monastery, and other super sects were also spread to 100 Refinement Sect. In the 100 Refinement main hall, the expressions of Extreme Fire and the others were extremely grim. What should we do? Although Dao Lord White Flames knew that Su Zimo was the disciple of Grandmaster Extreme Fire, he was a little anxious right now. As the sect master of 100 Refinement Sect, he naturally had to think for 100 Refinement Sect and said in a deep voice, Grandmaster Extreme Fire, please forgive me for being blunt, but we can't protect Uncle Master Su. He's in big trouble this time round. Extreme Fire frowned slightly and asked coldly, is he to blame for this? How do you expect him to face the combined attacks of those titular disciples? Should he have stood on the spot and allowed them to slaughter him? The 3 consecutive questions stumped Dao Lord White Flames, causing him to sweat profusely. But Dao Lord White Flames was extremely anxious and wanted to speak, but stopped. Extreme Fire, White Flames is also thinking for 100 Refinement Sect. With a calm expression, Shangguanzi said in a deep voice, he's right. 100 Refinement Sect, won't be able to protect Su Zimo. Even if the 4 unorthodox groups join forces, we won't be able to. The 4 unorthodox groups specialized in weapon refinement and talisman crafting. In terms of combat strength, they were far inferior to the experts of the 9 immortal sects, 7 fiend sects, and 6 Buddhist monasteries. Even in 100,000 years, the unorthodox groups might not be able to produce another expert the same level as Extreme Fire. Chapter 1033. He's Desolate Marshal. Chapter 1033. He's Desolate Marshal. That's right. Elder Gu nodded as well. We all understand that this child is decent and even saved your life. You may not want him to die, but the reality is right in front of you. 100 Refinement sect can't protect him. Elder Gu suggested, why don't we send the child away after he comes out? To where? Shangguanzi frowned. Who in Tianhuang mainland would dare to have anything to do with this lad? Should we ask Enigma Palace to step in? Elder Gu said in a low voice. Enigma Palace has always been fair and impartial. Su Zimo is not at fault for this matter. They might be able to protect him. Furthermore, Enigma Palace does have the capability to do so. If there was any faction in Tianhuang mainland that could defend against the attacks of 6 super sects, it was probably the most mysterious Enigma Palace. It's useless. Shangguanzi shook her head. If the 6 super sects make things difficult for us, they don't even have to use the excuse of taking revenge for their titular disciples. They can just say that they're exterminating evil and fiends. No matter how strong Enigma Palace is, they wouldn't dare to take on such a huge pressure and protect a cultivator who might be a fiend demon. That's not in line with what Enigma Palace does. Elder Gu and the others knew that Shangguanzi was right. Everyone exchanged glances and sighed deeply. This was a dead end that could not be broken. Extreme Fire had a dark expression, and no one knew what he was thinking about. Extreme Fire, let me say something. Don't be angry. Elder Gu was silent for a long time before saying, right now, the only chance of survival is for Su Zimo to leave 100 Refinement sect and survive on his own. I believe that given the child's temperament, he can understand us. Elder Gu added as well, that's right. Tianhuang mainland is boundless and might not be hopeless. At the very least, he can head to the 8 demon regions. In truth, that statement could only be used to deceive oneself. If the conjoint body mighty figures of 6 super sects of the human race were to make a move, none of the demon regions would engage in a bloody battle with the 6 super sects just for Su Zimo. Right then, Extreme Fire suddenly said, when he returns, I'll take him away from 100 Refinement sect. From now on, we'll have nothing to do with 100 Refinement sect anymore. Everyone exclaimed and looked at Extreme Fire in disbelief. Everyone understood that the reason why Extreme Fire said that he had nothing to do with 100 Refinement sect was because he did not want to implicate it. With that, the 6 super sects would no longer have any reason to vent their anger on 100 Refinement sect because of Su Zimo and him. However, no one expected that Extreme Fire would make such a huge sacrifice for Su Zimo, abandoning everything to escape to the end of the world with Su Zimo. Extreme Fire, you've just been reborn. There's no need. Shangguanzi was agitated and choked with emotions. She could not continue. Extreme Fire patted Shangguanzi's palm gently with a hint of guilt in his eyes as he said gently, Shangguan, I'm going to have to let you down again. Shangguanzi shook her head without saying anything. She merely grabbed Extreme Fire's arm and refused to let go. You guys might have misunderstood me, Extreme Fire said. The reason why I'm protecting Zimo so much and am even willing to risk my life to escape with him is not because he saved me in the past. It's because he is Desolate Marshal and he wishes to establish a Dao. He wishes to establish a Dao for all living beings. Just this reason alone is enough for me to do everything I can to ensure his safety, even if I die. Everyone was shocked. Elder Gu and the others shook their heads and sighed. Back then, the 3 of them courted Shangguanzi at the same time, but she chose Extreme Fire. Throughout all these years, the 2 of them still felt a trace of indignance. However, just then, they realized the difference between them and Extreme Fire. Right then, 100 Refinement Sect Cultivator ran in hurriedly and panted. Sect Master, Seniors, a Dharma characteristic Dao Lord outside requests an audience. He says that he's the Azura. Everyone's expressions changed slightly. Dao Lord Azura? What is he doing here? Elder Gu frowned. Dao Lord Extreme Fire pondered for a moment before waving his hand. Let him in. Although Dao Lord Azura had a terrible reputation in the cultivation world and was cold-blooded and bloodthirsty, he seemed to have some ties with Su Zimo. Furthermore, 100 Refinement Sect had no feud with the Azura. At that moment, there was no need for the Azura to come to 100 Refinement Sect to kill anyone either. Before long, Yin Beichen strode in with a long black robe. He looked unusually pale and was expressionless. Dao Lord Extreme Fire and Shangguanzi scanned with their spirit consciousnesses and could not help but frown. Elder Gu of Elixir Yang Sect sniffed and sensed something as well. Yin Beichen was injured. Furthermore, it was an injury on the essence spirit and was extremely difficult to repair. Extreme Fire asked indifferently Azura, "Why have you come to 100 Refinement Sect?" The Azura did not bow either. With a cold expression, he went straight to the point. If Su Zimo returns and 100 Refinement Sect wishes to abandon him, I'll take him away. At that point, the entire hall fell silent. Dao Lord Extreme Fire's gaze on Yin Beichen turned gentler as well. Shangguanzi asked, "Where are you taking him? Azura Sect can't protect him either. Don't forget, Malevolent Earth Sect is among the 6 major sections. The world is vast and we can settle anywhere." Yin Beichen was still expressionless as he said indifferently. All the cultivators in the hall fell silent. The legendary cold-blooded and bloodthirsty Azura actually made the same decision as Extreme Fire after hearing the news of the 6 major sects. Abandoning the status and reputation of the cultivation world, they were willing to protect Su Zimo and escape together, who said that such a person was cold-blooded and heartless. Dao Lord Extreme Fire looked at Yin Beichen and said softly, "If I'm not wrong, your essence spirit's injuries are not light. Were you injured when you killed Dao Lord Immortal Sword and the others?" Yin Beichen remained silent as a form of acknowledgement. "It's very difficult to recover from an injury like yours. Instead of resting and recuperating properly, you want to escape to the end of the world with someone else? Do you want to die?" Dao Lord Extreme Fire asked again. "I'll do my best." Yin Beichen lowered his head slightly and replied. Even if he was severely injured, he had to protect Su Zimo and escape. Elder Gu's heart skipped a beat as he lamented, "Rumors are harmful and the masses speak louder than the truth. Now that I've seen it for myself, I finally understand the Azura's nature." For some reason, Elder Gu felt his nose sting and his eyes were moist. He walked forward quickly and took out a small medicine bottle from his storage bag, handing it to Yin Beichen. "Here's a 9 Revolution Soul Return Elixir. I only have one with me, and it's good for your essence spirit's injuries. Hurry and accept it." Everyone present was shocked. The 9 Revolution Soul Return Elixir was a spirit elixir from the ancient era and its refinement method had long been lost. Every time it was used, there would be one less. Most importantly, the 9 Revolution Soul Return Elixir could be considered as the best elixir to repair one's essence spirit. That elixir was definitely a priceless treasure. In the cultivation world, even conjoint body mighty figures would fight to the death for it. However, despite Elder Gu offering such a precious item, Yin Beichen was completely unappreciative. He harumphed and turned his head with a disdainful expression. He was the Azura and had never wanted anything from anyone. How could he accept such charity? However, he seemed to have thought of something in the blink of an eye, and a hint of struggle flashed through his eyes. After hesitating for a long time, he turned around and took the bottle. "Thank you." The Azura had never thanked anyone in his life. But today, he had broken his vow. "Take it here and recover as soon as possible," Extreme Fire said. "As for Zimo's matter, let's wait and see. There might be other ways." The Azura did not reply and merely kept the bottle carefully without consuming the 9 Revolution Soul Return Elixir. While Extreme Fire and the others were puzzled, they did not ask further. Chapter 1034, Complete Annihilation. Chapter 1034, Complete Annihilation. Although the battle outside the Three Tribulations domain had already ended, many cultivators were still lingering. Many people had yet to recover from their shock as they looked at the green-robed cultivator on the battlefield. I reckon that from today onwards, the title of number 1 Perfected Lord will no longer belong to Desolate Marshal. Right now, he should be the number 1 Dao Lord. Not necessarily. Don't forget about Dean. Many cultivators were shocked. They realized that there might be a shocking battle that would be even more terrifying than this. On the battlefield, Su Zimo consumed some elixirs and collected spoils from the battlefield while recovering his stamina and essence spirit. After he entered the Dao inheritance ground, almost everybody he killed were titular disciples. Although there were no cultivation techniques or secret skills in the storage bags of titular disciples, there were indeed all sorts of superior-grade elixirs. The belongings of Dao being Heavenly Dipper and the other 4 titular disciples were also good stuff. Disregarding the items in their storage bags, the Destiny Dharmic weapons of the 4 of them alone were Khanate Dharmic weapons that originated from the ancient era. They could even withstand the creation Green Lotus without shattering. Right then, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat and a cold glint flashed through his eyes. Turning his head slightly, he looked into the void not far away. No matter what, Desolate Marshal established his Dao and killed 4 titular disciples right after entering the Void Reversion Realm. His momentum is truly unstoppable. That's right. Only Dao being Hidden Death left. Dao being Hidden Death sure is smart. He did not attack the entire time and managed to avoid a calamity. The discussions continued. Dao being Hidden Death had not gone far and was hidden nearby. When he heard the discussions of many cultivators, he felt bitterness in his mouth. Ever since the battle broke out, he had been hovering around Su Zimo, waiting for an opportunity to launch a fatal attack. However, he did not attack the entire time. It was not that he did not want to, but he truly did not have a chance. The 4 titular disciples released their essence spirit secret skills at the same time. At that time, he had just appeared before concealing himself right away. Even if he attacked then, he would not be able to hurt Su Zimo at all. That was because Su Zimo had an essence spirit Dharmic weapon that he had yet to use. It could defend against his essence spirit secret skill at least once. It was meaningless to attack like that. Therefore, he hid himself once more and waited patiently. However, as time passed by and the titular disciples died one after another in Su Zimo's hands, he suddenly realized that his chances were decreasing. When all 4 of the titular disciples were dead, he did not dare to move anymore. Compared to Heavenly Dipper and the others, at least I'm alive. Dao being Hidden Death consoled himself. Right then, he suddenly felt a chill run down his spine and his hairs stood on end. Su Zimo turned around and stared at his position. Dao being Hidden Death felt his scalp tingle as he tried his best to channel Hidden Death Sect's Fiend technique to calm down his aura, bloodline flow, and heartbeat. However, Su Zimo did not retract his gaze and continued to stare at his position with a mocking gaze. How is that possible? Dao being Hidden Death tried his best to control his state of mind and not let his emotions fluctuate too much. He closed both eyes tightly to retract the light in them. It's impossible for him to discover my tracks. This must be a coincidence. Dao being Hidden Death chanted internally. Hidden Death Sect's methods were assassination and concealment. This was the foundation of their sect and was also their greatest reliance. Even Dharma characteristic Dao Lords would not be able to discover his tracks, let alone cultivators of the same level. Otherwise, he would have died countless times over the past thousands of years. Right then, a faint sigh sounded from the battlefield, causing his heart to sink instantly. You didn't take the opportunity to escape earlier on. There's no chance for you now. Looking at the void not far away, Su Zimo's eyes lit up and he attacked brazenly. Initially, many cultivators were puzzled, wondering what Su Zimo was lamenting to the air not far away. However, right after Su Zimo attacked, a blurry figure suddenly appeared in the void. Dao being Hidden Death. The crowd was in an uproar. None of them discovered Dao Being Hidden Death's tracks and thought that he had already left. To think that Su Zimo would still be able to capture him, that's impossible. Dao Being Hidden Death retreated and shrieked, "Desolate Marshal, how did you discover my tracks?" He knew that he had not revealed any flaws earlier on, and there was no way Su Zimo would have noticed. However, reality was extremely cruel. One fled while the other chased, but the distance between them was closing rapidly. With just a few breaths, Dao Being Hidden Death could already feel the pressure approaching him from behind, causing him to feel suffocated. Although he was a titular disciple of Hidden Death sect, his combat strength was far inferior to Dao Being Heavenly Dipper and the others. Even Dao Being Zephyr Thunder could not escape from Su Zimo's pursuit, let alone him. Seeing that he had no chance of escaping, Dao Being Hidden Death's eyes flashed with a ferocious glint. Turning around, he raised his sleeves and thrust out a long sword that shone with a cold glint towards Su Zimo's glabella. At the same time, he activated his Essence Spirit secret skill, God-Piercer Dagger. A massive dagger made of spirit consciousness flew out from Dao Being Hidden Death's glabella and pierced towards Su Zimo instantly. Whoosh! A Buddhist light shone brightly on Su Zimo's left wrist, forming a barrier of light around his body that shone with mysterious golden symbols. Mingwang prayer beads. Boom! The dagger struck the golden barrier with a loud bang. Instantly, the dagger dissipated and the light barrier shook violently. Although it dimmed significantly, it did not shatter. Now that Su Zimo was at the Void Reversion Realm, the Essence Spirit barrier formed by his Mingwang prayer beads was even harder to take down. When he saw the incoming sword, Su Zimo did not even use the Creation Green Lotus. He extended his right hand and placed it on the sword in a seemingly soft manner, creating a coil and a tremble. Piak! The sword was sent flying by his palm. Right then, a cold glint flashed and a chilling, killing intent exploded. There was an almost transparent dagger hidden within the sword earlier on. If one did not look carefully, they would not be able to see anything. Shadowless Dagger. A legacy Khanate Dharmic weapon of Hidden Death, sect from the ancient era. It was completely transparent without even a shadow. The moment the sword was sent flying, Dao Being Hidden Death whipped out his shadowless dagger and stabbed it towards Su Zimo once more. Fu! Sneering coldly, Su Zimo opened his palm and caught the incoming dagger. Poof! The shadowless dagger pierced through Su Zimo's flesh and even his palm. However, the dagger was stuck between the gaps of his bones and could not move at all. No matter how Dao Being Hidden Death spun, he could not injure Su Zimo's right hand. Right then, the originally transparent dagger gradually revealed its tracks and the shadowless dagger turned incomparably red, like a piece of metal that was burnt through. Divine Phoenix Bone. Dao Being Hidden Death's pupils constricted as that thought flashed through his mind. Su Zimo took advantage of the situation and raised his palm. The scarlet shadowless dagger streaked through the air with a blood beam. Dao Being Hidden Death's expression froze. I got it. You obtained an inheritance of the Fiend sections. That's why you can see through my tracks. After saying that, half of Dao Being Hidden Death's head slid down slowly and his life force dissipated. Dao Being Hidden Death's head was sliced into two by the shadowless dagger, and his essence spirit could not escape. He was dead. Chapter 1035, Fighting Dean Again. Chapter 1035, Fighting Dean Again. At this point of the battle, all 5 titular disciples were annihilated. Including Dao Being Glass and Dao Being Poison, 7 titular disciples died in Su Zimo's hands and were buried in the Dao inheritance ground. Later on, there were even people who called this matter the establishment of Dao by Desolate Marshal and the calamity of titular disciples. It was recorded in history and was an important node of the cultivation world. Outside the 3 tribulations domain, many cultivators looked at Su Zimo with mixed emotions: caution, fear, jealousy, and respect. Su Zimo put away the shadowless dagger and Dao Being Hidden Death's storage bag. If Dao Being Hidden Death's tracks were exposed, his combat strength would be far inferior compared to Dao Being Heavenly Dipper. Dao being hidden death was right. The reason why Su Zimo was able to discover his tracks was because of the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra. This cultivation technique was passed down from ancient times and encompassed many things of the Fiend sections. Prior to this, as long as Dao being hidden death restrained his killing intent, it would be difficult for Su Zimo to discover his tracks even with his spirit perception. But now, after cultivating the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra, he possessed an indescribable perception towards cultivators of hidden death sect. As long as they were within his perception range, even titular disciples would not be able to escape. Su Zimo collected the spoils of the battlefield and headed outside. Without saying anything, the crowd automatically opened up a path. Passing by the crowd, Su Zimo paused in his tracks and shouted, "Where is Dean? Has anyone seen him?" "Over there." When I saw him, he was still chasing after Dao being Enigma. Many cultivators in the crowd immediately stood out and pointed over. An existence like Dean would attract attention no matter where he went unless he intentionally hid himself. The Dao inheritance ground was not large, and it was easy to locate him. "Fellow Daoist Desolate Marshal, aren't you going to rest first?" In the crowd, a cultivator mustered his courage and said, "You've just fought a fierce battle. If you fight against Dean again, your chances of winning aren't high, right?" Many cultivators turned to look at that person as though they were looking at a dead man. Who was this? This was Dao being Desolate Marshal who had just slain 7 titular disciples. Was this person tired of living to tell him that his chances of winning weren't high? After saying that, the cultivator seemed to have realized something as well and shrank his neck in fear, not knowing what to do. "Dean is nothing." Su Zimo smiled faintly, not bothered at all. His green robes fluttered as he strode into the distance. He did not use Dharmic powers and merely used the burst of his physical body to travel. At the same time, he consumed elixirs to recover his essence spirit. In his consciousness, the creation green lotus swayed gently and filled the place with a radiant glow. The lights on the lotus seeds had already dimmed when they collided with the essence spirit secret skills of the 4 titular disciples. Now that they had returned to the lotus platform, the glow of the green lotus seeds began recovering. They turned increasingly bright as spirit chi spread. The black-haired essence spirit sat on the lotus platform with an endless glow around it. After the creation green lotus became a grade 6 and matured, its benefits to the essence spirit would become increasingly obvious. When cultivating on the lotus platform, apart from gaining a more refined and pure essence spirit, the recovery of the essence spirit's power was also shockingly fast. He believed that his essence spirit would mostly recover by the time he arrived at where Dean was. No elixir or medicine could match his recovery speed. Su Zimo had spent a lot of time, effort, and energy to nurture the creation green lotus by gathering the power of the immortal, Buddhist, and Fiend Das. Now, the creation green lotus had finally brought him a huge opportunity. At a certain ruin, debris could be seen everywhere. A gigantic and thick stone pillar rose into the skies with a purple figure seated on it. The figure had black hair that flowed down like a waterfall and his eyes were tightly shut. He exuded an imposing aura as though he was the ruler of the world. It was Dao being Chaos Essence, Dean. When he caught sight of the green lotus that rose into the skies, he stopped in his tracks and no longer chased after Lin Xuanji. Instead, he sat there with his eyes closed to adjust his state. Right now, he had rested for more than an hour and his stamina had recovered to its peak. He could vaguely guess that this time round, Heavenly Dipper and the others would not be able to stop Su Zimo after the latter left the 3 Tribulations domain. Su Zimo would definitely arrive here. "Dean, why aren't you chasing anymore?" On a dilapidated wall not far away, a pale-faced, beardless Taoist priest in gray robes sat on it, smiling at Dean. It was Lin Xuanji. "Say, you chased after me for 20 days like a mad dog. Now that everything had suddenly gone silent, I'm not quite used to it." As a disciple of Enigma Palace, Lin Xuanji was no match for Dean in terms of combat strength. However, it was almost impossible for Dean to kill him as well. "Tisk, TSK, TSK. Lin Xuanji sat on the wall and beckoned to Diyin, letting out a strange sound as though he was playing with a puppy. Diyin was expressionless and turned a deaf ear. Lin Xuanji wanted to disrupt his mental state on purpose, but he was unmoved. Say, Diyin, how confident are you against Su Zimo? Even if Diyin did not reply, Lin Xuanji would not sit by idly as he asked with a grin. Diyin remained silent. Lin Xuanji analyzed pretentiously, look, Su Zimo was already able to kill titular disciples when he was at the nascent soul realm. I'm guessing that he must have obtained some sort of opportunity and is now at the void reversion realm. Can you win a void reversion realm, Su Zimo? Diyin's heart finally stirred. If Su Zimo was at the void reversion realm, the outcome of this battle would be hard to predict. Lin Xuanji smiled gently. Su Zimo has established his Dao heart, and his aura is exuberant right now. If he comes knocking, it means that Heavenly Dipper and the others are most likely dead. You won't be able to defend against the momentum that was created with the blood of so many titular disciples. Diyin, if I were you, I would leave the Dao inheritance ground right now. He won't leave. Right then, a calm voice sounded from afar. A figure appeared on the horizon and sped over, arriving before them in the blink of an eye. Brother Su, you've indeed advanced to the void reversion realm. Lin Xuanji was delighted. If Su Zimo was at the void reversion realm, his chances of winning this battle would naturally increase. When Su Zimo saw that Lin Xuanji was fine, he heaved a sigh of relief and nodded with a smile. Brother Su, how do you know that he won't leave? Lin Xuanji asked. Su Zimo said, the fact that Diyin challenged me to the Dao inheritance ground means that he was already fearful to begin with. If he can't kill me in the Dao inheritance ground, he will never get another chance ever again. This time round, if he escapes without a fight, I'll become a mental demon that he can't get rid of. Diyin opened his eyes and stood up. His black hair danced and the aura within his body rose continuously as he said slowly, You're right. I can't rest easy without killing you. Foo-foo. Suddenly, Su Zimo laughed. Diyin, do you know that I, Desolate Marshal, have never considered you as an opponent? In my eyes, you're not worthy. Su Zimo said indifferently, when you set up the battlefield in the Dao inheritance ground, you've already lost. Diyin's heart skipped a beat. Sensing it, Su Zimo's eyes lit up and he attacked brazenly. Chapter 1036, Chaos Essence Bell. Chapter 1036, Chaos Essence Bell. At their level, they would be caught if they revealed any slight openings. The moment Diyin's heart skipped a beat, Su Zimo charged forward and punched the heavenly piercing stone pillar with a loud bang. Bang! Boom! Boom! Instantly, the stone pillar collapsed, causing gravel to fly as dust billowed everywhere. Firmament. Along with a shout, Diyin waved his hands and Dharmic powers surged. It was as though the entire firmament was affected as it suppressed down slowly. Previously at the Thousand Crane Tea Party, Yi Tiancheng released the firmament art as well. Back then, Yi Tiancheng's firmament art was created using Dharmic powers to weave a firmament to suppress them. However, Diyin's firmament art was much more terrifying than what Yi Tiancheng released. Diyin's hands seemed as though they could tug at the entire firmaments, bringing with them an endless power as the worlds might enveloped over. The firmaments covered the entire world. This was the true might of the world and was not something that humans could defend against. Many cultivators had just arrived and exclaimed in shock at the sight of this. They're fighting. The power of that Dharmic art is so terrifying that most heaven and earth Dharma characteristics won't be able to withstand it. This is the true firmament art. Let's see how Desolate Marshal reacts. In terms of Dharmic powers, the difference between the two of them is still rather obvious. Su Zimo had just entered the void reversion realm. However, Diyin's cultivation was already at late-stage void reversion realm. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged as his hands shifted continuously, forming hand seals one after another. Surging fiend chi flowed out from his fingertips, pitch black as ink, and a gigantic scythe was formed between his hands. The heavenly fiend scythe. Desolate Marshal has recovered so quickly. Outside the Three Tribulations domain, he couldn't even release an escape technique using his Dharmic powers. To think that he can release such a terrifying Dharmic art now. Everyone was shocked. Slay. Su Zimo roared and pointed upwards. The pitch-black scythe tore through the air, shrouded in fiend chi and surging killing intent. Even the firmament could not suppress it. Sizzle. The pitch-black scythe streaked across the firmament and let out an ear-piercing sound. The entire firmament was sliced into two by the pitch-black scythe. That Dharmic art was condensed from the lifetime comprehension of half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky towards the Fiend Dao. Its terrifying might made up for Su Zimo's lack of Dharmic powers. "All right," Dean shouted. When the voice sounded, he was still at the end of the firmament. By the time the heavenly fiend scythe broke through the firmament art, he had already arrived in front of Su Zimo and slapped his gigantic palm towards the latter. The palm seemed to have disappeared in midair and turned into a gigantic millstone. It carried the power of distortion, suppression, and grinding. The void distorted and transformed as well. The great chaos essence palm. At the same time, Di Yin's blood chi burst forth and a series of shocking tsunami sounds echoed from all directions. Tsunami blood. He had cultivated his bloodline to its limits. When Di Yin charged over, his pupils constricted like a full moon that was being devoured continuously in a frightening manner. The visual technique, Eclipse Eye. Di Yin's eyes flashed coldly and burst forth. By releasing his blood chi, Chaos Essence Sect's secret skill, and even his visual technique at the same time, Di Yin's aura was torrential. The reason why he did not hold back was because he wanted to maximize his advantage. He believed that Su Zimo, who could not use his blood chi right now, was definitely not his match in melee combat. Di Yin's movement technique was way too fast, and the ferocity of his attacks was unprecedented. Even if the four titular disciples joined forces, they would not be a match for Di Yin. The pressure made Su Zimo feel suffocated. However, his expression was fearless and a green beam of light shot out from his glabella. The creation green lotus was already in his palm. The green lotus swayed and the void trembled. The two cold beams were blocked by the gigantic lotus leaves and dissipated instantly. The creation green lotus easily destroyed Eclipse Eye. The great chaos essence palm? Let's see if it can withstand a blow from the creation green lotus. Su Zimo sneered and swung the creation green lotus towards Di Yin's incoming palm. Di Yin's eyes flashed coldly. Before his palm could collide with the creation green lotus, a chill ran down his spine. He was confident that his body was indestructible and even a Khanate Dao being's Dharmic weapon would be turned into scrap metal if he were to use the great chaos essence palm. However, he felt a sense of uneasiness when he saw the seemingly weak green lotus platform fly over. In a flash, Di Yin retracted his palm and avoided a calamity. An hour ago, the creation green lotus that soared into the skies and broke through the firmaments to disperse the dark clouds left a deep impression in his mind. In the Dao inheritance ground, he was invincible in melee combat, and there was no need for him to take this risk. Do you think you're the only one with Dharmic weapons? Di Yin's glabella shone and a stream of light flew out, expanding rapidly in front of him. It was an ancient bell. The ancient bell was etched with mysterious and complicated runes that were bedazzling. The surroundings of the ancient bell were shrouded in mist with an extraordinary aura. There were many Dharmic weapons in the cultivation world, and flying swords were the most common. Among the many Dharmic weapons, cultivators that used rare Dharmic weapons such as tripods, bells, pagodas, and furnaces were generally strong and not to be provoked. Brother Su, watch out. This is the Chaos Essence Bell, a Khanate Dharmic weapon refined from a replica of an Emperor weapon. It's terrifying. Lin Xuanji, who was watching from afar, reminded loudly. Although Di Yin had been chasing him for 20 days, as the current generation's successor of Enigma Palace, he could not help in this battle. Go. Di Yin summoned the Chaos Essence Bell and charged towards the creation Green Lotus. Clang. The Green Lotus platform collided with the Chaos Essence Bell and let out a crisp sound. As though a monk from a temple was striking a bell, the sound of the bell rang endlessly. Su Zimo shuddered and took half a step back. The creation Green Lotus did not manage to gain any advantage against the Chaos Essence Bell. The Chaos Essence Bell was definitely not a Khanate Dao being Dharmic weapon. It was very likely to have reached the level of a Khanate Dao Lord Dharmic weapon. Diin was extremely talented, and his cultivation was at the late stage of Void Reversion Realm. His essence spirit was comparable to Dharma characteristic Dao Lords, and there was a high chance that he could refine his Destiny Dharmic weapon into a Dao Lord Dharmic weapon. The true terror of the Chaos Essence Bell was not its indestructibility that could withstand the impact of the creation Green Lotus. Instead, a bell would ring when the two collided. Although the bell sound did not affect Diin at all, it could vibrate Su Zimo's body and organs. If it was any other cultivator, their bodies would have been injured and their eardrums would have been pierced by the bell sound of that single collision. After cultivating the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, Su Zimo's physique was frightening. Even if he could not use his bloodline, a single sound of the bell could not hurt him. However, if they were to clash continuously and the bell sounds accumulated within his body, the damage would stack up and its impact could not be ignored. How is it, Desolate Marshal? Does it feel good? Diin held the Chaos Essence Bell in high spirits and returned to his confident and invincible state. Chapter 1037, Endless Stamina. Chapter 1037, Endless Stamina. It's just a broken bell. Su Zimo smiled indifferently. Today, I'll send you off. His palm touched his storage bag, and he pulled out Heaven Splitter. Su Zimo held the creation Green Lotus in his left hand and Heaven Splitter in his right. He strode towards Diin with a murderous aura. Swoosh! The Green Lotus swayed and shone brightly as it struck towards Diin once more. The corners of Diin's mouth curled up slightly. His body was like a mountain, and he did not budge at all. Holding the Chaos Essence Bell in his left hand, he injected Dharmic powers, and the fog around the Chaos Essence Bell intensified. Clang! The creation Green Lotus collided with the Chaos Essence Bell, and another bell sounded. However, right after, the sound of ghosts wailing and wolves howling echoed on the battlefield, suppressing the sound of the bell. Su Zimo waved Heaven Splitter in reverse and slashed out multiple Saber shadows, releasing the Ghost Howl, Purgatory, and even Countercurrent Saber intents. Multiple intents were fused together. On the battlefield, a gigantic purgatory appeared with a torrential river of blood and demonic shadows, letting out shuddering cries. Unknowingly, an ancient stone truncheon had appeared in Diin's palm. It was stained with blood and had a menacing aura. Break! Diin let out a long howl and swung the stone truncheon. As the wind howled, a series of sorrowful cries shook the world. While others did not feel anything when they heard that sound, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. His bloodline contained dragon blood. His heart actually resonated with those sorrowful cries. Those were sorrowful cries of the dragon race. Bang! 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 Diin's blood chi burst forth, and he swung the stone truncheon, crushing the purgatory that had just been formed with ease. Sparks flew when the stone truncheon struck Heaven Splitter. Su Zimo shuddered. Crack! 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 Clear cracks appeared on Heaven Splitter. This Khanate Dao being Dharmic weapon created by extreme fire was shattered by Diin's stone truncheon after a single clash, and its glow dimmed. It's the dragon battling truncheon, Lin Xuanji exclaimed with a grim expression. Diin nodded. As expected of a successor of Enigma Palace. You are knowledgeable. Brother Su, be careful. This dragon battling truncheon is a weapon from the ancient era. Although it has no grade, it's indestructible and has once injured a divine dragon. Lin Xuanji reminded hurriedly, the bloodstains on it are the blood of the divine dragon. Su Zimo recalled that the material of the stone hammer Yi Tianqing used at the Thousand Crane Tea Party seemed to be similar to the material of the dragon battling truncheon. Lin Xuanji felt a sense of lingering fear. Thankfully, he did not clash head-on with Diin. Otherwise, he might have died in the blink of an eye once the latter brought out these weapons. Desolate Marshal, even the Dharmic weapon that you rely on the most is unable to threaten me. What other methods do you have? Yin's expression was cold and his aura was torrential. With the Chaos Essence Bell in his left hand and the Dragon Battling Truncheon in his right, he charged towards Su Zimo. Boom! With a flip of his palm, Su Zimo brought out the Mystic Magnet Mountain and placed it between them. However, Yin's speed did not decrease at all. Foo-foo. Yin sneered. The Mystic Magnet Mountain is useless against the Chaos Essence Bell and the Dragon Battling Truncheon. After I entered the nascent Soul Realm, the Dharmic weapon I chose was specially meant to defeat you. Many cultivators felt their hearts turn cold when they heard that. How much resentment and scheming did he have to be to select a specific Dharmic weapon for this the moment he entered the nascent Soul Realm? Everyone suddenly realized that Su Zimo was right about one thing. He had already become Yin's mental demon. This was Yin's final chance. Su Zimo did not panic when he saw Yin crossing the Mystic Magnet Mountain with ease. Since the Mystic Magnet Mountain, he would fight then. Against Yin, Su Zimo waved the creation Green Lotus with his left hand and charged forward with his right fist. Clang! The Green Lotus and Chaos Essence Bell collided. Swoosh! An evil wind blew. The Dragon Battling Truncheon transformed into a streak of light and smashed down towards Su Zimo's head. Su Zimo clenched his right fist and punched with a cold gaze. Bang! The Dragon Battling Truncheon collided with Su Zimo's right fist and gave off a dull sound of defeat. Blood flashed. Su Zimo's right fist was smashed into a pulp by the Dragon Battling Truncheon. However, the Dragon Battling Truncheon that could shatter Heaven Splitter could not do the same to Su Zimo's right hand that possessed the Divine Phoenix Bone. Divine Phoenix Bone, huh? Yin smiled sinisterly. Let's see how long you can last. The two of them collided once more. Both of them held terrifying Dharmic weapons in their hands. In melee combat as such, not much techniques were involved. It was a pure clash of strength and stamina. Each collision was earth-shaking. Everywhere the two of them passed, countless ruins were trampled into ashes. Clang, clang, clang. The Chaos Essence Bell sounded continuously. Each time it rang, Su Zimo's body would tremble. Bang, bang, bang. The Dragon Battling Truncheon and Su Zimo's right hand collided repeatedly as well. There was not much flesh left on Su Zimo's right hand after it was beaten by the Dragon Battling Truncheon. All that was left was a scarlet bone that clashed against the Dragon Battling Truncheon. This sort of head-on clash consumed the most energy. Su Zimo's right hand was not the only thing in a tragic sight. Blood began to flow from the corner of his mouth as well. Poof, poof, poof. His body was convulsed and suffocated by the sound of the Chaos Essence Bell as his flesh exploded, spewing out blood that stained his green robes. Yin closed in step by step as though victory was right in front of him. His expression turned increasingly excited, and he used all his strength every single time he attacked. Su Zimo retreated continuously. Although he was covered in blood and looked extremely wretched, his eyes were unusually calm without any hint of panic. Although his body seemed to be in tatters, in reality, he was not severely injured. Furthermore, the vibration of the Chaos Essence Bell caused the power of the afterglow left behind by many ancient mighty figures and was hidden within Su Zimo's body to be revealed. Those afterglows were tiny light spots that had helped Su Zimo reconstruct his body with boundless Dharmic powers. Right now, the afterglow that was left in his body was released completely and began repairing Su Zimo's body without the need to be manually controlled. On the surface, Su Zimo looked bloodied. However, at that moment, his injuries were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. His stamina was also recovering rapidly, and his condition was rising continuously. Both parties did not stop at all and continued fighting for an entire hour. Even Yin felt exhausted. The toll was way too great. The sound of his blood chi surging was not as loud as before. What shocked Yin was that even though he was extremely exhausted, Su Zimo seemed oblivious to it. It was as though he got stronger as the battle progressed. Another series of battles ensued. An hour later, Su Zimo no longer retreated. Another hour passed and Diin started retreating. His dragon battling truncheon could not shatter the divine phoenix bone. The Chaos Essence spell could not suppress the creation Green Lotus either. Under such intense consumption, he gradually felt his stamina depleting. Why does Su Zimo seem to possess boundless stamina? Diin was enraged. Every time the creation Green Lotus struck the Chaos Essence spell, he would feel his arm tremble. Under the vibration, his teeth loosened and a salty taste of blood filled his mouth. Unknowingly, the tables had turned. Chapter 1038, Infinite Saber, Green Lotus Sword. Chapter 1038, Infinite Saber, Green Lotus Sword. This was a clash of pure strength. Su Zimo held the creation Green Lotus in his left hand. Each time he waved it, a glow would spread and the Lotus platform would fall. It was even fiercer than the impact of a meteor. Although he did not have a weapon in his right hand, with his divine phoenix bone, he was not disadvantaged against Diyin's dragon battling truncheon as well. This battle had stimulated the afterglow the ancient mighty figures left behind in his body at the end of the Three Tribulations domain and provided him with an immense amount of energy. At that moment, Su Zimo was fighting fiercer and fiercer. However, Diyin had already begun to retreat. He realized that he might be exhausted to death if this continued. He possessed the body-tempering inheritance of Chaos Essence, Sect, and Human Emperor, and his physique was terrifyingly strong with a long stamina. Even the successors of the top body-tempering sects among the Immortal, Buddhist, and Fiend sects were not his match. Or rather, he would not fear even if someone from the primordial 9 races appeared. However, he was disadvantaged against Su Zimo repeatedly. A body tempered by the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness was way too terrifying. Even if he could not channel his blood chi, the foundation of his body was still there. Given Diyin's strength, it was impossible for him to truly destroy this body or severely injure it. All of a sudden, Diyin's glabella shone and a terrifying spirit consciousness surged out, forming a spirit consciousness weapon that resembled a saber and sword in midair. The weapon was extremely wide and was edged on one side, like a saber. However, at the tip of the blade, there were 2 edges and it resembled a sword. The spirit consciousness weapon had the sharpness of a long sword and the ferocity of a long saber. The 2 auras fused perfectly. Its Chaos Essence Sect's top-grade essence spirit secret skill, Infinite Saber. Diyin's spirit consciousness is way too terrifying. It's so strong that it's comparable to Dharma characteristic Dao Lords. Even if a Dharma characteristic Dao Lord was here, he would be killed with a single slash from the Infinite Saber. Cries of surprises came from the crowd. The Great Chaos Essence Palm and Infinite Saber were the 2 most famous secret skills of Chaos Essence Sect. Slay. After Diyin controlled the Chaos Essence spell and withstood the attack of the creation Green Lotus, he suddenly released his Essence Spirit secret skill. The Infinite Saber tore through the air with a destructive aura. Su Zimo's expression turned grim. The might of this Essence Spirit secret skill was unprecedented. If the Mingwang prayer beads were intact with the 2 remaining Buddha beads, he might have been able to defend against it. But now, the Mingwang prayer beads was an incomplete Dharmic weapon after all. Su Zimo could sense that even if he channeled it with all his might, the barrier of the Mingwang prayer beads would not be able to defend against the sharpness of the Infinite Saber. Up till now, he only knew one Essence Spirit secret skill, the Rulai Dharmic Seal. Although his Essence Spirit that was on the creation Green Lotus had mostly recovered, he was still unable to release the Rulai Dharmic Seal. In the battle against the 4 titular disciples earlier on, in its peak condition, his Essence Spirit was almost sucked dry, and he nearly fainted. If he were to release the Rulai Dharmic Seal now, he would be exhausted to death before he could even clash with the Infinite Saber. Diyin said murderously, "Desolate Marshal, this battle can end now." Not necessarily. Su Zimo controlled his thoughts. Streams of light spewed out from the Green Lotus platform. there were 54 green lotus seeds. After the green lotus seeds collided with the essence spirit secret skills of the 4 titular disciples, their glows dimmed and they were no longer sharp. However, after returning to the lotus platform to be nourished for a period of time, every green lotus seed had already recovered to its original state. It was resplendent and sharp. The 54 green lotus seeds gathered rapidly and disappeared in front of everyone, turning into a green sword. Lotus flowers were carved on the sword in a godly manner. Rays of light circulated on the green sword, and a rosy glow filled the air. The lotus flowers seemed to have a life of their own as they bloomed silently with sword chi. Buzz! The sound of a sword buzzing rang out. The green lotus sword stabbed towards the infinite saber that was coming towards him. The clash between the saber and sword was silent. However, at the center of the 2 sabers and swords, countless storms were formed. Saber chi filled the air and sword chi splattered everywhere. A few cultivators who were too close and could not dodge in time were affected by the remnant spirit consciousness shockwave. The few of them were stunned, and their expressions froze on their faces. They did not move at all, and the life force in their bodies dissipated rapidly as they collapsed stiffly. There were no injuries on the bodies of the few cultivators. However, their essence spirits were wiped out by the aftershock of the collision between the infinite saber and the green lotus sword. Pissed! The crowd gasped. Everyone dispersed and retreated in fear of being implicated. Void reversion Dao beings that could enter the Dao inheritance ground were definitely backed by conjoint body mighty figures, which of them were ordinary people. However, these few void reversion Dao beings could not even withstand the remnant spirit consciousness shockwave of the essence spirit clash between Su Zimo and Diin. Who could imagine the power of the 2 essence spirit secret skills? The green lotus sword was also a mysterious technique that could only be created after the creation green lotus reached grade 6. Every single green lotus seed shone with a resplendent glow and possessed a sharpness that could sever essence spirits and defend against spirit consciousness attacks. If he were to condense all the green lotus seeds, the green lotus sword would be formed. It was a killing technique that targeted the essence spirit and possessed terrifying might. Even ordinary Dharma characteristic Dao Lords could have their essence spirits severed by the green lotus sword. The 2 essence spirit secret skills collided in midair and devoured one another. Neither of them had the upper hand. The infinite saber dissipated. At the same time, the green lotus sword vanished as well, turning into 54 green lotus seeds that were dimming. They returned to the lotus platform and were nourished slowly. At that moment, huge waves surged in Di Yin's heart. The infinite saber was his strongest trump card. He had even killed Dharma characteristic Dao Lords with that essence spirit secret skill. Even if some Dharma characteristic Dao Lords could withstand it, their essence spirits would definitely be severely injured, and it would be difficult for them to defend against his next attack. He had not expected that Su Zimo would be able to take on the infinite saber's attack unscathed. It's the creation green lotus again. Di Yin's eyes burned with rage. The creation green lotus was the reward for being the top of the phenomenon ranking 100 years ago. That treasure should have belonged to him. It was all because of the person in front of him who took away everything that belonged to him. Stabilize. Suddenly, Di Yin tossed the chaos essence bell in his hands into midair. A divine light burst forth from his glabella and entered the chaos essence bell as the bell rang. Clang! The entire void quaked for a moment. Right on the heels of that, the chaos essence bell released an ancient and boundless aura. Beams of mist scattered down like a waterfall and enveloped Su Zimo. Humph! Su Zimo sneered, and the creation green lotus in his hands swayed. The green lotus rose in reverse, and the lotus leaves extended, blocking the falling mist. The chaos essence bell could not suppress the creation green lotus at all. Go! Di threw the dragon battling truncheon in his hands as well. The dragon battling truncheon transformed into a streak of light and shot towards the jade green lotus stem. The green lotus swayed gently and repelled the dragon battling truncheon with a gentle shake. Immediately after, the lotus leaf extended and wrapped the dragon battling truncheon. The chaos essence bell and the Creation Green Lotus were only in a stalemate thanks to the dragon battling Truncheon. As such, the Creation Green Lotus could not break through the shroud of the Chaos Essence spell within a short period of time. Chapter 1039, Crushing. Chapter 1039, Crushing. In midair, the Chaos Essence spell trembled slightly above the Creation Green Lotus. Dean knew that even if he abandoned the two connate Dharmic weapons, it was impossible for him to suppress the Creation Green Lotus. However, it was enough for him as long as the three Dharmic weapons were in a stalemate. He believed that without the protection of the Creation Green Lotus, Su Zimo would not be able to withstand his attacks and killing techniques. Swash! Dean's figure flashed, and he arrived in front of Su Zimo in the blink of an eye. The distance of dozens of feet was covered in a flash at a frightening speed. Splash! Dean's bloodline surged like a tsunami, emitting a terrifying aura as he extended his palm and slapped down on Su Zimo's head. Blood chi gushed and Dharmic powers rumbled. A power as vast as the sea crushed over like a gigantic millstone that could destroy, suppress, and crush everything. The Great Chaos Essence Palm. The reason why this palm technique could become Chaos Essence Sect's strongest secret skill was because the Great Chaos Essence Palm fused the cultivator's body, blood chi, and even Dharmic powers perfectly. The power of his body and bloodline was not the only thing released from that palm strike. There was also Dharmic powers. The combination of the three powers caused the killing power of the Great Chaos Essence Palm to reach its limits. That was the reason why Dean managed to shatter Su Zimo's inner armor with a single palm strike in the past and even severely injure the latter. Typically speaking, only conjoint body mighty figures would have such methods. Every single move they made was the power and might of heaven and earth. Dean's movement technique was way too fast. He did not give Su Zimo any chance to dodge at all. The moment he attacked, he sealed off all of Su Zimo's escape routes. Su Zimo opened his mouth slightly and uttered Sanskrit. Pa. He placed his palms together and his index fingers made contact. The other four fingers crossed and conjured a mysterious Dharmic seal. The immovable foundation seal. It was the only defensive seal in the damning Dharmic seal. Instantly, Su Zimo's feet seemed to have grown roots. It was like an ancient tree with countless thick roots digging deep underground, extending and grabbing onto the earth. Boom! The Great Chaos Essence Palm and immovable foundation seal clashed, sending shockwaves and Dharmic powers flying everywhere. The gigantic millstone in front of Dean spun continuously and crushed down towards Su Zimo. Crack! 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 Su Zimo's body shuddered, and the roots of Dharmic powers beneath his feet snapped. Even the immovable foundation seal could not withstand the might of the Great Chaos Essence Palm. Su Zimo was pushed back. The Divine Phoenix Bone was indestructible and could withstand the sharpness or attacks of connate Dharmic weapons. However, its true strength was difficult to activate and posed no threat to Dean. Dean's judgment of the situation was extremely precise. Unable to use the Creation Green Lotus or activate his blood chi, it was as though Su Zimo had lost two arms. It was difficult for him to fight. Boom! Dean did not show mercy after gaining the upper hand. He strode forward and slapped down once more. A gigantic millstone appeared with an ancient aura. Mysterious marks appeared on the millstone one after another, glowing like words. Chi! Su Zimo closed his fingers and slashed gently at the incoming gigantic millstone. A blinding sword chi tore through the air. Heaven-slaying sword art. The white sword chi collided against the gigantic millstone. The millstone that was initially spinning slowly came to a sudden stop as a clear and straight sword scar appeared in the middle. Immediately after, the gigantic millstone was split into two. Although the Great Chaos Essence Palm was destroyed by the Heaven-slaying sword art, the sword chi released by the Heaven-slaying sword art dissipated into the void as well. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Ever since he cultivated the Heaven-slaying sword art, he had been unstoppable and invincible. After he entered the void reversion realm, the might of the sword art was even greater. To think that it was only a draw against the great Chaos Essence Palm. Of course, it was not because the Heaven-Slaying Sword Art was not strong enough. Suzumo had obtained the Heaven-Slaying Sword Art less than half a year ago, and he only had 3 months to truly comprehend as well as cultivate it. To put it simply, that sword chi was merely the tip of the iceberg of his comprehension. Not bad. Dean nodded and attacked once more with a cold gaze. Again. Boom. The great Chaos Essence Palm appeared once more and suppressed down. That was the terror of that secret skill. With Yin's blood chi, physique, and dermic powers, he could release it almost limitlessly until he ground his opponents to death. Suzumo was the only one in the world who could hold out for so long. As for the Heaven-Slaying Sword Art, Suzumo would need a long time to recover after releasing a single sword chi. Ma. And I. The Demon Subduing Seal, Fiend Suppression Seal, and Immortal Trap Seal were released at the same time. 3 golden palms descended, wanting to block the great Chaos Essence Palm. Boom! The gigantic millstone in midair collided with the 3 golden palms and ground continuously. The millstone dissipated, and the 3 golden palms disappeared as well. The combination of the 3 Dharmic seals and the Daming Mantra released at the same time was merely enough to defend against the great Chaos Essence Palm. It did not mean that the Daming Dharmic seals could not compare to the great Chaos Essence Palm. There were a total of 6 Daming Dharmic seals that complemented the Mingwang prayer beads. The 2 Daming Dharmic seals that were lost were imprinted on the 2 missing Buddha beads. Legend has it that the might of the 2 Daming Dharmic seals was the most terrifying. Among the 6 Dharmic seals, they were the most ferocious and powerful. Right now, he could not defend against the crushing power of the great Chaos Essence Palm with just the first 4 Daming Dharmic seals. Before Suzumo could catch his breath, Yin's other hand conjured a gigantic millstone and crushed down as well. Yin's attacks were like a violent storm that did not give Suzumo any chance to catch his breath. Suzumo did not have time to conjure any Dharmic arts and could only raise his arms to defend. Bang! The collision between flesh and bones produced a series of jarring sounds. Creak, creak. It was as though Suzumo's skeleton was about to be crushed into pieces by the gigantic millstone as he staggered backwards. The clothes on his arms were torn. The flesh on both arms were already minced by the great Chaos Essence Palm, revealing ghastly white bones that were shocking. An intense pain surged like a tidal wave. Suzumo sucked in a cold breath of air and grit his teeth. He glared at Dean with a calm expression, his eyes frighteningly bright. The afterglow of the ancient mighty figures was not endless. At that moment, it was already exhausted. In reality, no matter how strong their stamina was, both of them had already reached their limits by this point of the battle. Releasing the great Chaos Essence Palm consecutively was a huge drain on Dean, as well as a huge burden on his body. At that moment, his body was steaming and his continuous outbursts had already caused him to break out in sweat and his face looked a little pale. However, in comparison, Suzumo's condition was clearly worse. This made Dean feel slightly relieved and his aura rose continuously. He was prepared to kill Suzumo in one go. Desolate Marshal, you've used up all your trump cards. Bow down. Dean had already gained the upper hand and was closing in step by step. Circulating his blood chi and Dharmic powers once more, he released the great Chaos Essence Palm and suppressed down forcefully. Boom! The gigantic millstone appeared once more and spun slowly. The entire void beneath it distorted and was crushed bit by bit. Chapter 1040, Caturadhi Dao Fire. Chapter 1040, Caturadhi Dao Fire. Initially, Suzumo had intended to fight Dean to a stalemate and exhaust him. Once the Creation Green Lotus broke free from the suppression of the Chaos Essence Bell and the Dragon battling Truncheon, he would be able to regain the upper hand with the Creation Green Lotus. However, the current situation was extremely dangerous. Dean would not give him that chance. Although Suzumo's gaze was cold, there seemed to be 2 balls of flames burning in his eyes. Swoosh! He changed his hand seals repeatedly, and 3 balls of flames appeared beside him. One was scarlet, one was gold, and one was black. The immortal, Buddhist, and Fiend Dao fires. After inheriting the fiend techniques of half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky, apart from many cultivation techniques, Su Zimo even managed to deduce a black Fiend Dao fire. Samadhi Dao fire was the strongest Dharmic art in the Scarlet Flame Mental Sutra. After Su Zimo redefined it, the Samadhi Dao fire underwent a transformation, and its power was even more terrifying and shocking. Back at the Thousand Crane Tea Party, the void reversion of Hellfire Hall was burned to ashes by Su Zimo's Dvyadi Dao fire. At that time, Su Zimo was only at the nascent soul realm, and that Dharmic art only had 2 balls of flames. Now that Su Zimo was at the void reversion realm, there were 3 balls of flames around him. It was the true Samadhi Dao fire. Not bad. Although Diin did not recognize the origin of the Samadhi Dao flames, his cultivation was strong and he was sharp. He quickly sensed that the 3 balls of flames were unusual. Your flame Dharmic art can indeed defend against my great chaos essence palm. The corners of Di-Yin's lips curled up slightly as he sneered. However, it's merely to defend for a while. Your Dharmic art can't be released continuously in the end, but my great chaos essence palm can. Dean was not the only one. Su Zimo had the same judgment. Although his Samadhi Dao fire had been reborn, his cultivation was only at the early stage void reversion realm. With this Dharmic art alone, perhaps, he could only fight evenly against the great chaos essence palm that was fused together with Di-Yin's physical strength, blood chi, and Dharmic powers. If he wanted to truly threaten Di-Yin, he had to raise the power of that Dharmic art by another level. We'll see if you can even defend against this Samadhi Dao fire. Su Zimo said coldly and pointed forward. The 3 balls of flames that surrounded him suddenly floated towards Di-Yin. Before they even arrived, the 3 balls of flames collided and their power increased exponentially. The entire void was burned and distorted. Even the cultivators watching from afar felt waves of heat surging towards them, let alone Di-Yin who was facing it directly. What a terrifying Dharmic art. Extinguish. Di-Yin's gaze was burning like a torch, and he was oblivious to it. He flipped his great chaos essence palm and suppressed the Samadhi Dao flames. Just as the great chaos essence palm and Samadhi Dao fire were about to collide, Su Zimo's glabella shone and a red light burst forth, emitting a scorching aura. Essence Spirit Fire. The 4th flame arrived instantly and was injected into the Samadhi Dao fire. The Samadhi Dao fire instantly transformed into a Caturadhi Dao fire. Alongside Su Zimo's cultivation, the might of that Dharmic art also increased exponentially with every additional Dao fire. Now that the Samadhi Dao fire had transformed into the Caturadhi Dao fire, its power had increased exponentially and its nature had completely changed. Lin Xuanji was sitting on a broken wall at the side to watch the battle. The aftershock of Su Zimo and Di-Yin's collision was extremely threatening to other cultivators. However, it was nothing to him. The reason why he did not go far was because he was worried about Su Zimo. He was thinking that if Su Zimo was defeated in this battle, he could not sit back and do nothing. At most, he would save Su Zimo and continue escaping. However, the moment the Caturadhi Dao fire was formed, the initially nonchalant Lin Xuanji was shocked. Fuck! His expression changed starkly as he leaped up from his spot and fled without hesitation. His movement technique had always been fast. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to escape for 20 days without losing a single hair under Di-Yin's pursuit. Even so, when he escaped to the vicinity of the crowd, his clothes were already badly burned with countless holes in them. His hair and brows were curled from the heat and his body was emitting green smoke. If that was the case outside the battlefield, one could imagine how terrifying the might of the Caturadhi Dao fire at the center of the battlefield was. Lin Xuanji turned around in shock. The ruins within a radius of 1,000 feet around Su Zimo and Di-Yin were burned into ashes instantly. Swoosh! Under the great chaos essence palm, a ball of 4-colored flames burst forth. Instantly, the gigantic millstone was burned red and turned into lava that flowed down. In the void, flames burned brightly, engulfing Di Yin's palm, arm, and even his entire body. If the Samadhi Dao fire could only match the power of the Great Chaos Essence palm, the Caturadhi Dao fire with the addition of the Essence Spirit fire was enough to kill Di Yin. Ah! Di Yin shrieked in the flames. Desolate Marshal, I'm going to kill you. Flames raged and Di Yin had already turned into a gigantic fireball, waving his arms and roaring furiously. Everyone was shocked when they saw that. Instantly, things changed on the battlefield. No one expected that Di Yin, who had the absolute advantage earlier on, would be burned by a four-colored flame in the blink of an eye. In the crowd, everyone's faces were still pale under the illumination of the flames. Their eyes were completely filled with shock. The power of the Caturadhi Dao fire could burn even Khanate Dao being Dharmic weapons into ashes. However, Di Yin was not burned to death despite the terrifying flames. It was clear how frightening his body was. Di Yin was still struggling as he channeled his blood chi and Dharmic powers, wanting to suppress the Caturadhi Dao fire. What sort of Dharmic art is that flame? Even Dharma characteristic Dao lords won't be able to escape death if they come, right? Legend has it that Dao Lord Extreme Fire was the #1 in controlling fire back then. I heard that Desolate Marshal inherited his Dao technique. How terrifying. Di Yin is finished. This flame is relentless and his essence spirit doesn't even have the chance to leave his body. After this battle, Desolate Marshal's reputation will definitely reach its peak as the #1 Dao being in Tianhuang mainland. Things change when they reach an extreme. In my opinion, Desolate Marshal won't be able to live for long. Many cultivators stood at the outer perimeter and looked at the human-shaped fireball in the center of the battlefield from afar with conflicted expressions. Su Zimo's essence spirit withered instantly after he released the essence spirit fire. His essence spirit was already at its limits after the consecutive intense battles. If the Caturadhi Dao fire could not turn defeat into victory, he would not have any trump cards left. Looking at Di Yin, who was struggling not far away, Su Zimo's expression was cold and there was no pity in his eyes. He recalled how Ji Qingtian was severely injured after being hunted down by Di Yin for the past 100 years, as well as Little Fatty's close brush with death. He recalled the scene of Di Yin striking Solitary Cloud's chest 20 days ago. He recalled that Solitary Cloud was still lying in his storage bag with his life on the line. The rage in Su Zimo's heart intensified. He did not care about Di Yin's identity or how strong his backing was. He was not going to leave Di Yin any chances today. The moment to kill Di Yin was now. Chapter 1041. Kill. Chapter 1041. Kill. In a flash, Su Zimo closed in on Di Yin. Although the power of the Caturadhi Dao fire was strong and its temperature was high enough to incinerate everything, it did not cause Su Zimo any harm. Now that he was closer, Su Zimo could clearly see through the layers of flames that Di Yin's clothes had already turned into ashes. Under the searing of the Caturadhi Dao fire, his flesh was split open and he gave off a pungent burnt scent. Even so, under the suppression of his powerful blood chi and Dharmic powers, the Caturadhi Dao fire merely burned his flesh without penetrating his bones and organs. A terrifying physique and bloodline. Without the Caturadhi Dao fire, Su Zimo would have no chance of winning if things dragged on. But now, the tables have turned. Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly with a murderous intent as he reached out with his gigantic palm. Clenching it into a fist, he punched towards Di Yin's chest. Roar! Even within the flames, Di Yin could still sense that someone was attacking him and let out a roar. His throat was filled with smoke and dust. That roar was also hoarse and ear-piercing. Di Yin swung his arm and welcomed Su Zimo's fist. His spirit consciousness could not detect it at all and his eyes were already blinded. This counterattack was purely based on his strong combat talent and instincts. Di Yin is indeed a monster incarnate of the current era. To be able to fight back after being burned to such a state, he's truly strong. That's right. If not for Su Zimo, Di Yin would have definitely become an existence like the ancient emperors in the future. Many cultivators were filled with emotions when they saw that. Bang! Su Zimo dodged Di Yin's palm and punched his chest. Di Yin was burnt to such an extent that his eyes were blinded and his spirit consciousness was crippled. For Su Zimo, who had terrifying melee combat strength, it was way too easy for him to dodge Di Yin's attack. This punch is for Ji Chengtian. Su Zimo's voice pierced through the flames and sounded in Di Yin's ears with a cold, killing intent. Di Yin spat out a mouthful of blood. Before it could splatter in the void, it was incinerated into nothingness by the Caturadhi Dao fire. Di Yin's chest caved in deeply and a fist mark appeared. Cracks appeared on his sternum after that punch. This punch is for little fatty. Taking a step forward, Su Zimo punched out once more in the imprint of the punch earlier on. Bang! Another punch landed heavily on Di Yin's chest. As though he was struck by lightning, a huge chunk of his chest caved in and countless ribs shattered into his organs. He coughed out large mouthfuls of blood as foam bubbled in his mouth. Initially, the Caturadhi Dao fire could not break through the defense of his flesh and blood to seep into his bones and organs. However, after 2 consecutive punches, raging flames were already burning towards his organs through the wound on his chest. Dean staggered and swayed, retreating unconsciously. Su Zimo walked towards Dean and raised his fist once more. This punch is for Solitary Cloud. Su Zimo strode out with the plow heaven stride and landed heavily in front of Dean. Twisting his waist, he gathered all the strength in his body and punched Di Yin's already collapsed chest. Poof! Di Yin's chest spewed out an arrow of blood. It was penetrated by Su Zimo's 3 punches. His current outcome was no different from Solitary Cloud. However, his physique was strong and his vitality was way too exuberant. Even though he was severely injured, he could still stand on the spot. Su Zimo's gaze was cold as he glared at Dean, who was covered in flames, and said slowly, "With this final punch, I'll send you on your way." He stretched out his arm that looked weak and feeble like a divine elephant's trunk and flung it towards Dean's head. Swoosh! Su Zimo's palm landed on Dean's head and struck a vicious punch. Crack! 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 Under countless gazes, Dean's head spun a few times on his neck and was almost twisted off. Right then, a beam of light shot into the skies. His essence spirit had exited his body. Even under the searing of the Caturadhi Dao fire, Dean chose to use his essence spirit to escape from his body. His essence spirit was wrapped in a Dharmic robe that shone brightly. It was an essence spirit Dharmic weapon. After Di Yin's essence spirit broke through the flames, the Dharmic robe on his body could not withstand the heat of the Caturadhi Dao fire and was ignited in the blink of an eye. His essence spirit Dharmic weapon was destroyed. He threw away the robe hurriedly and his essence spirit escaped. "You're still trying to escape?" Su Zimo sneered and leaped into the air, letting out a sudden roar. Kill! The sound domain secret skill, Thunderclap Kill, exploded. Di Yin's essence spirit shuddered and Su Zimo had already caught up from behind. The latter reached out with his gigantic palm and Di Yin's essence spirit was trapped within. Fu. Dean laughed even though he knew that he would definitely die. "Desolate Marshal, even if you kill me, you won't be able to live for long. You killed so many titular disciples in this Dao inheritance ground, and you think you can survive?" Su Zimo's expression was calm and unmoved as he said indifferently, "It's all right. Even if I die, I'll kill you first." After pausing for a moment, Su Zimo thought about it and said, "It would be too easy on you if I kill you right away. I'm curious what opportunities you've obtained. I want all of your opportunities." After saying that, a ball of light appeared in Su Zimo's palm. The ball of light was filled with black fiend chi that resembled chains and locked Dean's essence spirit within. "What are you doing?" Finally, Dean felt a tinge of fear. "Search your soul, of course," Su Zimo said coldly and channeled the soul-searching art without hesitation. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Images flashed through Su Zimo's mind one after another. It began from the start of Di Yin's cultivation and happened at an extremely fast speed. Suzimo did not pause at all when he saw the scenes of chi condensation and foundation establishment. In a flash, he looked all the way to the back. He wanted top-secret skills like the Great Chaos Essence Palm and Infinite Saber. The scene changed. In a secret chamber, a middle-aged man sat cross-D. He looked to be no more than 34 years old. However, his eyes were filled with the vicissitudes of time. It was unknown how long he had lived. Dean was kneeling obediently before the middle-aged man. Today, I'll impart Chaos Essence Sect's strongest secret skill, the Great Chaos Essence Palm, to you, the middle-aged man said slowly. Suzimo's eyes lit up and he listened intently. All of a sudden, the eyes of the middle-aged man who was initially sitting on a praying mat shone brightly as he looked at the void beside him. Killing intent burst forth from his eyes as he said coldly, "Who are you? How dare you spy on me, D-Fan, imparting the Dao?" Boom! Suzimo's mind jolted, and his soul-searching art stopped. Instantly, he woke up, and before he knew it, he was drenched in sweat. His expression was grim as he furrowed his brows in shock. The soul-searching art scoured Yin's memories. In other words, those memories were all events that had already happened and were fixed. However, in that memory, the middle-aged man who imparted the Dao to Yin was able to awaken and discover his existence. That was way too terrifying. This method had already surpassed Suzimo's understanding and was even more sinister than the soul-searching art. That was probably a divine power. Taking a deep breath of air, Suzimo suppressed the distracting thoughts in his mind temporarily and looked at Yin's essence spirit in the ball of light with a cold expression. No matter what, Yin would definitely die. Suzimo closed his palm. Poof! Yin's essence spirit was crushed. Dao being chaos essence, Yin, was dead. Chapter 1042, The Saying of the Human Tripod. Chapter 1042, The Saying of the Human Tripod. The battlefield was desolate. Yin's corpse laid quietly on the ruins, lifeless. Many of the cultivators looked at the corpse with agape mouths, unable to recover from their shock. Prior to this, who could have imagined that Dao being chaos essence, Yin, would die here? Yin had only cultivated for more than 200 years, and his achievements were dazzling. He had even obtained the inheritance of the human emperor and was lauded as the #1 monster incarnate of Chaos Essence Sect and even Tianhuang mainland. He was once the #1 of the phenomenon ranking. He had killed countless enemies that were way above his cultivation realm. Even among the titular disciples, no one was willing to go against him. However, even such a monster incarnate had fallen. In this lifetime, Chaos Essence Sect not only produced Yin, but Yi Tianqing as well. They were lauded as the Chaos Essence twin paragons. Almost everyone thought that with these two paragons, Chaos Essence Sect would become the leader of the immortal sects before long. Initially, Thousand Cranes Sect Master wanted to sacrifice Lung Ro as Yi Tianqing's Dao companion because she saw Chaos Essence Sect's potential. But now, the Chaos Essence twin paragons had already become a thing of the past. Within a single year, both paragons were killed one after another by the same person. Throughout history, there were countless paragons. However, there were very few that could truly reach the end and stand at the peak of Tianhuang mainland. Every paragon would encounter endless dangers in their growth. If they died prematurely, they would be forgotten before long. Even their traces left behind would be washed clean by the sands of time. The moment Dao being Chaos Essence, Yin, died, a total of 8 titular disciples had fallen here. The Dao inheritance ground had become the burial ground for this generation's titular disciples. In the ruins, a green-robed figure stood beside Yin's corpse. He did not look strong. In fact, he looked frail and possessed refined features. However, no one dared to look down on him. Desolate marshal, to rise through the ranks by trampling on the corpses of 8 titular disciples. There had probably never been a monster incarnate with such methods and boldness throughout history. Desolate marshal wishes to establish a Dao and impart martial arts to all living beings. The 14 words that sounded in the Dao inheritance ground earlier on rang within the minds of the cultivators present in a deafening manner. Perhaps, if this person did not die, he might really be able to impart martial arts to all living beings and change the fate of Tianhuang mainland. Perhaps, Tianhuang mainland would welcome another golden era that was no weaker than the ancient era. The same thought surfaced in the minds of many cultivators. "How is it? Are you all right?" Lin Xuanji ran over. When he saw that Su Zimo was silent, he extended his palm and waved it in front of him. Su Zimo nodded. The soul-searching art was interrupted, and he could not obtain the great chaos essence palm and other secret skills. Of course, that did not matter. However, when he recalled the terrifying gaze of the middle-aged man during the soul search, his heart throbbed. He could not explain it clearly. It was like a sudden impulse, and he had a feeling that a catastrophe was imminent. Taking a deep breath of air, Su Zimo suppressed that feeling temporarily and kept the creation green lotus. He paused and pondered for a moment. Seemingly thinking of something, he retrieved the creation green lotus from his consciousness and held it in his palm. Now that Diyin was dead, the chaos essence bell and the dragon battling truncheon became ownerless. Su Zimo put away the 2 connate Dharmic weapons and Diyin's storage bag. "You've really struck gold this time round." Lin Xuanji gave him a thumbs up secretly. "Not only did you survive the calamity, you even obtained so many treasures." Putting aside the storage bags of these titular disciples, their destiny Dharmic weapons alone were extraordinary. "Brother Lin, I can't thank you enough for your kindness. I'll definitely keep this gratitude in my heart," Su Zimo said with cupped fists. Lin Xuanji waved it off and chuckled. "What kind of relationship do we have? We were people who barged into the dragon's lair together back then." The two of them exchanged glances and smiled. Only the two of them understood what he meant. Back then, in order to avoid the pursuit of the Blood Crow Palace's lord, Su Zimo accidentally barged into the Dragon Bone Valley and met Lin Xuanji by chance. "Brother Su, is there something on your mind?" Lin Xuanji was meticulous and could not help but ask when he saw the worry in Su Zimo's eyes. Su Zimo sighed gently. "I have to meet someone." "Who?" Lin Xuanji asked. Su Zimo replied, "The pure maiden of the fiend sections." The pure maiden of the fiend sects was Demoness Ji. "Her?" Lin Xuanji raised his brows and revealed an enlightened expression. "She sacrificed herself for her human tripod. It's only right for you to visit her." "You know about the human tripod?" Su Zimo was slightly surprised. "I know a little," Lin Xuanji said. "Ordinary human tripods refer to young girls used by cultivators of the heretical path to absorb Yin essence for cultivation. However, the human tripod of the Fiend sect's pure maiden sect is completely different. According to what I know, among the 7 Fiend sects, Cloud Rain sect adheres to the Tao of indulgence. Men and women do not follow the rules of etiquette and copulate in their natural states. Yin and Yang are interconnected and heaven and earth are joined. The only rule is that they must not invest their personal emotions into it. On the other hand, the Pure Maiden sect is the exact opposite. They practice the Tao of extinguishing their desires. Every generation's Pure Maiden can choose a man as their human tripod. While they can fall in love with the man, they must not possess any lust towards him. By cultivating with the help of the human tripod, the Pure Maiden of the Fiend sects will temper her Tao heart continuously to increase her cultivation. The Pure Maiden of the Fiend sects can harm anyone in the world but her human tripod. Furthermore, her power will dissipate the moment she has any lust for the human tripod. If she uses the sacrificial method, her power will be transferred to the human tripod. After saying that, Lin Xuanji lamented, "The Pure Maiden of this generation's Fiend sects is probably ruined. The price is way too high." In the battle 20 days ago, Demoness Ji sacrificed herself and Su Zimo's body recovered. His Dharmic powers surged, and he managed to escape from the encirclement of the 5 titular disciples. As for herself, her cultivation was destroyed and she was reduced to a mortal. Even if her Tao heart was acknowledged by the powerful beings of Pure Maiden sect, it was useless. Su Zimo's eyes were filled with guilt and self-blame. Initially, he knew nothing about those things. He only understood the meaning of the pure maiden sex human tripod through the inheritance of half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky. Unfortunately, it was too late even if he knew. The obsession of the fiend sex had actually reached such a state. On paper, it sounded easy to maintain emotions without any lust. However, it was extremely difficult in real life. The deeper one's emotions were, the harder it would be to contain one's lust. It was completely contradictory to human nature. No matter what, I have to find her. Su Zimo said, this is the Dao inheritance ground where cultivators are everywhere. She will definitely be in danger if she loses all her powers. Let's go. I'll accompany you to take a look. Lin Xuanji patted Su Zimo on the shoulder and consoled, don't worry. As long as she's still in the inheritance of the Demoness stone statue, nothing will happen to her. Without saying anything more, the two of them disappeared in a flash. Chapter 1043, Dharmic Dao. Chapter 1043, Dharmic Dao. The Dao inheritance ground was not big. Su Zimo treated his wounds briefly and sped along with Lin Xuanji, arriving at the location of the Demoness stone statue before long. The moment he arrived, Su Zimo's expression changed. The Demoness stone statue that was initially standing there had already collapsed and shattered into pieces. Demoness G had vanished. He was a step too late. Su Zimo's expression turned extremely terrible. Every single inheritance stone statue left behind by conjoint body mighty figures possessed the power of a mighty figure and was indestructible. There was no way anyone could disturb the inheritance process. The greatest possibility was that someone destroyed the Demoness stone statue after the inheritance ended and snatched Demoness G away. Don't worry. Lin Xuanji looked around and said in a deep voice, there's no signs of a fight or blood at the scene. Dao being pure maiden should be fine. Let's search the vicinity first. The two of them searched separately. Su Zimo's essence spirit took an immense toll after the consecutive battles. However, he still tried his best to extend his spirit consciousness and searched carefully. Before long, he stopped in his tracks and shuddered. Not far ahead, a girl in pink was walking towards him. She had a graceful figure and light steps. Her bright eyes were smiling, and she exuded a charming aura that could stir one's heart. Who else could that be if it wasn't Demoness G? When he saw that Demoness G was fine, Su Zimo finally heaved a sigh of relief and could not help but laugh. Looking at Su Zimo, who was not far away, Demoness G smiled with extreme joy and a tender expression. Walking forward, Su Zimo realized that Demoness G's cultivation had not decreased at all. She was still at early-stage void reversion. How did you? Su Zimo was puzzled, but did not know how to broach the topic. Demoness G saw through Su Zimo's confusion with a single glance and said with a smile, you want to ask why my cultivation is still intact and why I haven't been reduced to a mortal despite the sacrifice. Su Zimo nodded. Initially, I lost all my cultivation because of the human tripod sacrifice. Demoness G said, however, it was also a blessing in disguise as it triggered the inheritance of the pure maiden stone statue. Not only did I recover my cultivation completely, I even obtained the complete pure maiden sutra. At that point, Su Zimo was finally relieved. Hey, do you know? For ordinary sacrifices, even if I lose all my powers, the human tripod will only be able to inherit 70% of it. A fragrant breeze blew over and Demoness G suddenly closed in, almost pressing herself against Su Zimo's body as she said softly, there's a Dharmic formulation that allows a human tripod to inherit 100% of my powers. Do you know what that is? If it was before, Su Zimo would have pushed Demoness G away or avoided her. However, this time round, he did not move at all. On the one hand, he felt guilty towards Demoness G. On the other hand, it was also because after he understood the meaning of the human tripod, he knew that Demoness G was merely bluffing and would not do anything out of line. What? Su Zimo asked instinctively. Demoness G smiled charmingly and crawled to Su Zimo's ear. Exhaling gently, she said, "Dual cultivation." Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat, and he almost lost control of his Dao heart. He praised internally. Compared to 20 days ago, Demoness G's bewitching skills were clearly even more terrifying. "Stop fooling around." Su Zimo smiled bitterly with a helpless expression. "I'm not," Demoness G said. "After obtaining the complete Pure Maiden Sutra, I found out there's a Dharmic formulation that allows dual cultivation with a human tripod. Not only would I retain my powers, they will even increase." Pausing for a moment, Demoness G chuckled. "Furthermore, it's good for you as well." Swoosh. Su Zimo felt as though a ball of flames had risen within his body, and he could not suppress it at all. He hurriedly took a few steps back and distanced himself from Demoness G. Against such a peerless beauty that could topple all living beings and bewitch the world, who could withstand her whispering and charming seduction? Su Zimo took a few deep breaths to compose himself. Prior to this, Demoness G had teased him like that as well. However, at that time, he could vaguely sense that she was merely joking. But now, he had an illusion that Demoness G truly wanted to eat him. That dual cultivation Dharmic formulation was extremely likely to be true. If his will was slightly weakened, he might truly end up veering off the wrong path with Demoness G. "Hee, look at how scared you are." Demoness G laughed. Su Zimo changed the topic hurriedly. "Why are you here?" "I only finished the inheritance process not too long ago and exited the Demoness Stone statue, so I headed to the Three Tribulations domain first," Demoness G said. "I only found out when I got there that you had already fought with Dean. By the time I arrived, you were already gone. I guessed that you would come looking for me and returned. Say, I don't really mean to disturb you guys." Not far away, on a green rock, Lin Xuanji stood against the wind and could not help but say, "But I've been standing here for so long. Can the two of you even take a look at me?" Su Zimo blushed. He was truly distracted by Demoness G and did not notice Lin Xuanji. Demoness G pursed her lips into a smile and bowed towards Lin Xuanji. "Thank you for saving Zimo, fellow Taoist Xuanji. I'm here to thank you." Lin Xuanji waved it off and avoided Demoness G's gaze hurriedly. Seemingly wary, he coughed gently and said, "You guys had better study what to do after leaving this place. Brother Su, you've killed 8 titular disciples. These 8 titular disciples represent 8 super sects." Lin Xuanji said in a deep voice, "It's fine if you're in the Dao inheritance ground, since even conjoint body mighty figures won't be able to make a move. However, if you leave, the 8 super sects will definitely not let you off. If there's really no other way, we can hide here for a while," Demoness G suggested. Su Zimo nodded. He could afford to wait, but Solitary Cloud in his storage bag could not. The life preservation elixir could keep Solitary Cloud alive for a month at most. Now, 20 days had passed. He had to return to Tianhuang mainland and try his best to save Solitary Cloud's life. Perhaps Elixir Yang's sect might have some elixir that could revive Solitary Cloud. As though he could read Su Zimo's mind, Lin Xuanji asked, "You're still thinking about that WIRM?" Su Zimo remained silent. Lin Xuanji sighed. "In my opinion, that WIRM can't be saved anymore. Even in Elixir Yang's sect, there's no elixir that can revive it." "I have to try," Su Zimo murmured softly and fell into deep thought. Middle Continent, Chaos Essence Sect. Suddenly, an extremely furious roar sounded from a cave abode deep within the sect. It was filled with a domineering might and cold killing intent, causing the surrounding mountains and ravines to fall into a dead silence. "Firmament arrival, get over here." An icy voice sounded. Chaos Essence Sect Master, mighty figure Firmament arrival, shuddered and hurried towards the back mountain of the sect. Chapter 1044, Arrival of the Great Calamity. Chapter 1044, Arrival of the Great Calamity. Arriving at a cave abode at the back mountain, Firmament arrival, despite his status as the master of a sect and was at the conjoint body realm, did not dare to be disrespectful and bowed. "Elder D, weren't you in seclusion? What happened?" Boom! There was a deafening sound. The door of the cave abode was shattered by a terrifying force and countless boulders smashed onto Firmament Arrival. However, Firmament Arrival did not dare to dodge and merely bowed slightly. A purple-robed figure walked out slowly with a burning gaze and a tremendous might emanating from his body. Even the conjoint body mighty figure, Firmament Arrival, almost could not withstand it and knelt on the ground. This was Chaos Essence Sect's Grand Elder, a half-martial ancestor expert, D-Fan. Seclusion? D-Fan's expression was dark as he said slowly, "If I continue my seclusion, I'm afraid Chaos Essence Sect will be destroyed. Let me ask you, is Dean still alive?" When he heard that, Firmament Arrival was terrified and drenched in sweat. Elder Dean. Firmament Arrival hesitated for a moment and swallowed his saliva before saying, "He's already dead." Su Zimo, none other than Desolate Marshal who had just established his Dao, killed him in the Dao Inheritance ground. Firmament Arrival hurriedly recounted the various news regarding the Dao Inheritance ground. Indeed, D-Fan's gaze turned cold. Initially, he was indeed in seclusion. However, he was alarmed the moment Su Zimo searched Di-Yin's soul. "Elder D, please calm down," Firmament Arrival said hurriedly. "That lad, Desolate Marshal, has the protection of 100 Refinement Sect. We've already made contact with Heavenly Dipper Sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace, Malevolent Earth Sect, Formless Monastery, and other sections. We're prepared to join forces to kill our way into 100 Refinement Sect and slaughter Desolate Marshal. A blood debt must be paid with blood. Why is it so troublesome to kill a void reversion?" D-Fan said coldly. "How long would it take to join forces with the other sects? What if something unexpected happens during this period of time and that lad manages to escape? I want him dead right now." Di-Yin's death triggered D-Fan's killing intent. Firmament Arrival smiled bitterly. "Elder D, that lad is still in the Dao Inheritance ground right now. That place is guarded by the wills of many ancient mighty figures, and it's impossible to penetrate with the power of conjoint body mighty figures. We can only wait for him to return to Tianhuang mainland before making a move." "Is that so?" D-Fan narrowed his eyes. Firmament Arrival's heart skipped a beat as he vaguely realized something and exclaimed, "Elder D, are you going to?" At the same time, 100 Refinement Sect. "What? Dean is dead?" Everyone from 100 Refinement Sect was shocked when they heard the news. Even though Su Zimo was at the Void Reversion Realm, everyone felt that it was almost impossible for him to kill Dean. Between them, while victory could be determined, it would be way too difficult for them to kill one another. Even Extreme Fire did not expect Dean to be killed by Su Zimo at the Dao Inheritance ground. Including Dean, 8 of the titular disciples had already died in Su Zimo's hands. Previously, when 6 titular disciples died, Dao Lord White Flames, Dao Lord Scarlet Star, and the others had grim expressions and were filled with worries. Now that 8 titular disciples were dead, it meant that if 100 Refinement Sect still dared to protect Su Zimo, they would have to endure the wrath of 8 super sects. The Dao Inheritance ground. Su Zimo, Lin Xuanji, and Demoness Ji were already prepared to leave. "Brother Su, why are you still holding the Creation Green Lotus? Who else would dare to provoke you in this Dao Inheritance ground?" When Lin Xuanji saw that Su Zimo was still holding the Creation Green Lotus and swinging it around, he could not help but purse his lips and ask. Su Zimo smiled without explaining. He could not help but feel uneasy and could only calm down if he held the Creation Green Lotus. Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks. His spirit perception alerted him and an unprecedented sense of danger descended, causing his scalp to tingle and his heart to almost jump out of his chest. His previous uneasiness was merely a hunch. But this time round, Su Zimo could truly smell the scent of death. It was more terrifying than any danger he had experienced before. The skies above the Dao Inheritance ground suddenly darkened. At that moment, every cultivator in the Dao Inheritance ground felt their hearts skip a beat. An extremely terrifying might coiled in the skies, as though it was searching for something. In the blink of an eye, It locked onto its location. This was a power that came from outside the Dao inheritance ground. Demoness Ji was shocked. This is the Dao inheritance ground. How is that possible? Lin Xuanji's eyes widened, as though he had suddenly recalled something. He could not continue as his eyes shone with fear. Without hesitation, Su Zimo pushed Demoness Ji and Lin Xuanji away. At the same time, he waved the creation green lotus in his right hand and injected Dharmic powers into it while slapping his storage bag with his left hand. Swoosh! The creation green lotus rose from the ground and burst forth with a jade-green glow, streaking towards the firmaments. The gigantic lotus leaves blotted out the skies, and the thick stem of the lotus was like a stone pillar that connected the heavens and earth. Snap! Suddenly, a crack appeared in the skies. Immediately after, a gigantic palm tore through the firmaments and crushed down with a supreme might as though it wanted to destroy the world. The entire Dao inheritance ground trembled and swayed. The void around the gigantic palm collapsed inch by inch and cracks appeared. Even this space could not withstand the impact of that power. How terrifying was a power that even the void could not withstand? That gigantic palm only had a single target, Su Zimo, who was on the ground. At that moment, every cultivator in the Dao inheritance ground saw the gigantic palm and shuddered in shock with frightened expressions. That power was way too terrifying. Even Dharma characteristic Dao lords and conjoint body mighty figures would be destroyed both physically and in spirit by the suppression of that power, let alone void reversion Dao beings. And no. Demoness Ji felt chills run down her spine as she looked at Su Zimo, who was not far away, and cried weakly. Lin Xuanji looked at the descending palm and recalled his master's words. His master had once told him sternly that Su Zimo would face a calamity upon entering the Dao inheritance ground. At that time, he did not take it to heart. He thought that Su Zimo would tide through the calamity after he got through the titular disciples, or Diin. It was only now that he realized that the palm before them was Su Zimo's calamity. The power of the conjoint body realm could not penetrate the barrier of the Dao inheritance ground. If this palm could penetrate the Dao inheritance ground to suppress down, there was only a single possibility. A terrifying expert beyond the conjoint body realm had attacked. When he realized that, a look of sorrow and mockery flashed through Lin Xuanji's eyes. The most tragic thing was that Su Zimo was already dead for sure with the attack of such a terrifying expert. To Lin Xuanji, the irony was that in order to kill Su Zimo and suppress his growth, an expert who had surpassed the conjoint body realm was willing to give up his dignity and attack a void reversion. Chapter 1045, Major Transference Talisman. Chapter 1045, Major Transference Talisman. If Lin Xuanji could guess, Su Zimo could naturally guess as well. The fact that he was able to break through the barrier of the Dao inheritance ground meant that the cultivation of the attacker had already surpassed the conjoint body realm. An ancestor realm expert, be it the patriarchs or half-martial ancestors, a power of that level was definitely not something that a void reversion could contend against. It was no exaggeration to say that if they were not in the Dao inheritance ground, a single look from an ancestor realm expert was enough to kill a void reversion. Actually, Su Zimo had already felt a vague sense of uneasiness the moment Di Yin's soul search failed. That was the reason why he had been holding the creation green lotus in his palm. However, he knew that even the creation green lotus would not be able to defend against the power of an ancestral realm expert. The grade 6 creation green lotus had just matured and was comparable to a Khanate Dao Lord Dharmic weapon. It was far from reaching its peak. This was akin to a Khanate spirit weapon used by golden cores in front of Su Zimo. He could crush it with ease. The difference in strength was too great. Right now, there was only a single chance for him to escape. The Major Transference Talisman. Therefore, the moment Su Zimo sensed danger approaching, he summoned the creation green lotus and tore the Major Transference Talisman from his storage bag without hesitation. He had not used the Major Transference Talisman ever since the old monk handed it to him. According to the old monk, he could be teleported to the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley the moment he crushed the Major Transference Talisman. Suzimo did not know if he could make it in time. He did not know if the power of an Ancestor Realm expert would interrupt the teleportation of the major transference talisman either. More than that, he did not know if there would be any unforeseen circumstances during the process. He only knew one thing: this was his only chance at survival. The major transference talisman shattered. A strange power burst forth and space trembled violently. Immediately after, a gigantic black vortex appeared behind Suzimo. It was deep and mysterious, as though it could devour everything. A terrifying suction force suddenly burst forth and pulled Suzimo's body in. At the same time, the creation green lotus that rose in reverse collided with the gigantic palm that was crushing down. Boom! Instantly, it was as though the world had stopped. Even the black vortex formed by the major transference talisman stopped spinning. Every cultivator in the Dao inheritance ground looked up at the skies with widened mouths and eyes filled with shock. In their eyes, the only things left in the world were the creation green lotus that brimmed with life and rose against the tides, and a gigantic palm. Crack, crack, crack. Immediately after, right in front of countless gazes, the thick green lotus stem broke apart inch by inch under the suppression of the gigantic palm, and its glow dissipated. The creation green lotus seemed to be letting out a sorrowful cry. Its gigantic lotus leaves were torn apart by the terrifying power as well. Lotus petals fell one after another in a tragic manner. This supreme treasure stole the creation of heaven and earth, had just risen and revealed its sharpness when it was mercilessly suppressed by a gigantic palm and crippled. The cultivators looked at this scene and remained silent for a long time. Everything seemed to indicate something. The fate of that monster incarnate seemed to be the same as the unyielding creation green lotus that rose against the tides. The creation green lotus was already suppressed. How could that person escape? The shattered lotus stem, leaves, and barren lotus platform were all sucked into the black vortex behind Suzimo. With the momentary obstruction of the creation green lotus, Suzimo managed to tear the major transference talisman and entered the deep, dark teleportation tunnel. The crisis seemed to have passed. However, the owner of that palm would not allow it at all. Trying to flee, a cold and sinister voice sounded from the firmaments. Boom! The gigantic palm descended suddenly, as though it had broken through the restrictions of space. Instantly, it reached into the pitch-black vortex and grabbed towards Suzimo, who had escaped far away. That was the power and methods of an Ancestor Realm expert. Even if he released the major transference talisman first, it was impossible for him to escape from an Ancestor Realm expert. Suzimo, who was in the teleportation tunnel, was faced with the impending calamity once more before he even had time to grieve for the destruction of the creation green lotus. Everything happened too quickly. From the moment he tore the major transference talisman and was dragged inside to the pursuit of the gigantic palm, everything happened in the blink of an eye. Without time to think, Suzimo could only raise his right hand instinctively to defend himself. Bang! Two palms collided. A terrifying force struck the divine phoenix bone. Screech! A clear phoenix cry sounded from the teleportation tunnel, piercing through metal and cracking rocks with an endless might. Immediately after, an extremely scorching aura burst forth from Suzimo's right hand, as though it could incinerate all living beings and destroy them. His right hand had already disappeared completely and was replaced by a gigantic and malevolent claw. It was scarlet and burned with a world-shaking divine flame. The power of the divine phoenix bone was completely activated, revealing its true form, the divine phoenix's claw. The divine phoenix's claw descended with divine flames surging on it. It was filled with a godly aura as it collided with the gigantic palm of the Ancestor Realm expert. Boom! Suzimo shuddered as though he was struck by lightning. Although the divine phoenix bone was undamaged against the power of an Ancestor Realm expert, it could not defend against the remnant power of the latter, as everything surged into his body through the divine phoenix bone. After all, Suzimo's bones were not divine phoenix bones. A single surge of remnant power into his body was absolutely devastating for his flesh. Crack, 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 poof, poof, poof. His bones were all shattered, and every single one of them was the size of a fingernail. Not a single one of them was intact, and his flesh was ruptured. He was almost completely smashed. His powerful body that had been cultivated for more than 100 years was completely crippled by the remnant power of an ancestor realm expert. His entire body was devoid of life. Furthermore, that was under the premise that the divine phoenix bone already blocked more than half of the power of the ancestor realm expert. If not for the divine phoenix bone, Suzimo's body and spirit would have been destroyed instantly, and his body would have been crushed into dust by the gigantic palm. However, this collision caused Suzimo's figure to sink swiftly into the depths of the black vortex, disappearing into the darkness. The gigantic palm reached in once more to scoop, but did not manage to grab anything. The ancestor realm expert harumphed coldly. The gigantic palm withdrew from the black vortex and retreated from the Dao inheritance ground. It was only at this moment that the terrifying might in the void dissipated slowly. After a long period of silence, the entire Dao inheritance ground burst into a clamor. Heavens! Desolate Marshal established his Dao and killed titular disciples, attracting the attack of an ancestor realm expert. I wonder if that was a Mahayana patriarch or half-martial ancestor. He's definitely a half-martial ancestor. Mahayana patriarchs have broad horizons and are dedicated to pursuing the great Dao. Why would they get involved over such a small matter? An ancestor realm expert actually lowered his dignity despicably in order to kill a void reversion Dao being. Desolate Marshal will no longer exist after today. Some people lamented, some sighed, some gloated, and some were devastated. Demoness Ji burst into tears and sobbed silently. Lin Xuanji stood there in a daze, seemingly unable to recover from the shock of that scene. After a moment, he said, "Fellow Taoist pure maiden, Brother Su is not dead yet. There might be a chance for things to change." Chapter 1046, Slaying into Dragon Burial Valley. Chapter 1046, Slaying into Dragon Burial Valley. Before long, news spread to Tianhuang mainland one after another, creating huge waves. An ancestor realm expert has attacked. Which sect? I don't know. It's extremely likely to be Chaos Essence sect. The creation Green Lotus was destroyed and Desolate Marshal's body was crippled. He was teleported away by the major Transference Talisman. We don't know where he went or whether he's alive. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Desolate Marshal is too sharp, and it's his fate to face such a calamity. Ever since the calamity of the Great Qin Empire 10,000 years ago, there was almost no news of an ancestor realm expert taking action in the cultivation world. However, during the establishment of Dao by Desolate Marshal and the calamity of titular disciples this time round, an ancestor realm expert made a move. This news was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples and shocked Tianhuang mainland. Before long, the super sects such as the 9 immortal sects, 7 fiend sects, and 6 Buddhist monasteries knew that the person who attacked was Chaos Essence sect's Defan, a half-martial ancestor expert, Middle Continent, Chaos Essence sect. Defan retracted his palm slowly. His expression was dark and his gaze flickered. No one could tell if he was happy or angry. Elder D, that lad has already died? Chaos Essence sect's sect master asked carefully. Defan replied expressionlessly, "No, his body and the creation Green Lotus were crippled by me. However, he managed to escape with the major Transference Talisman." Why does this lad have a treasure like the major Transference Talisman? Defan's tone was sinister. He was still furious that he could not kill Suzimo right away. The major Transference Talisman's teleportation location is fixed. Chaos Essence sect's sect master said in a low voice, "I've heard Dean mention that the first time he met Desolate Marshal was at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley." "Oh, Dragon Burial Valley?" Defan raised his brow and said slowly, "I heard from the old patriarch that there seems to be an old monk at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley. Is he still alive? No, but based on my calculations, 10,000 years have passed and this old monk doesn't have much lifespan left. His time should be up soon. Chaos Essence Sect Master's expression froze when he heard the words, Old Patriarch. A look of reverence flashed through his eyes as he replied in a deep voice. The old patriarch that D-Fan was referring to was the only Mahayana patriarch of the D-clan. His seniority was even higher than D-Fan. During the calamity of the Great Qin Empire 10,000 years ago, the reason why the evil ancestral level dragon was killed was because this patriarch of the D-clan attacked. D-Fan and the dead D-Een were both considered as the descendants of the D-clan's patriarch. However, the patriarch of the D-clan was not in Chaos Essence sect right now. D-Fan waved his hand and said coldly, relay the news that Desolate Marshal is at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley and contact Heavenly Dipper sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace and other factions to attack Dragon Burial Valley. Chaos Essence sect master frowned slightly and said hesitantly, Elder D, that old monk is still alive. Back then, he was a Mahayana patriarch after all. No worries. D-Fan sneered. How much combat strength can Mahayana patriarch in his twilight years have left with his weakened blood chi? He might not even be able to defend against a conjoint body mighty figure. Daming and Fahua monasteries have already been destroyed and vanished into thin air. I don't believe that an old monk whose lifespan is about to be up can defend against the combined attack of 8 super sects. After pausing for a moment, D-Fan's eyes shone with killing intent as he said coldly, at most, I'll strike once more. Middle Continent, 100 Refinement Sect. Everyone from 100 Refinement Sect was fretting over how to deal with the encirclement of the 8 super sects when the news of an Ancestor Realm expert attacking spread. Everyone was shocked. The killing intent from the Azura Yen Baichen burst forth and almost materialized. His gaze was sinister as though a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood was formed. He thought of all possibilities and even prepared for the worst where he would escape with Su Zimo to the end of the world. However, he never imagined that an Ancestor Realm expert would attack. That was akin to a strong adult man resorting to all means to kill an infant that could merely crawl. The difference between a void reversion and an Ancestral Realm expert was even greater than the difference between an infant and a strong man. To think that an Ancestor Realm expert would attack a void reversion. Chaos Essence sect is truly shameless for the sake of revenge. Elder Gu said hatefully. Elder Gu shook his head. I'm afraid it's not just for revenge. Not bad. Shangguanzi said. He established his Dao heart by stepping on the corpses of 8 titular disciples. Once such a monster incarnate grows up, it will be a disaster for super sects like Chaos Essence sect. The true reason why this Ancestor Realm expert attacked was because he wanted to murder this monster incarnate. Dao Lord Extreme Fire stood silently at the side, frowning in deep thought. Extreme Fire, don't worry too much. Shangguanzi said softly. According to the current news, Zimo has already been teleported away. We don't know if he's dead or alive. There's still hope. Everyone knew that this was merely a consolation. With the attack of an Ancestor Realm expert, the creation Green Lotus and his body were crippled one after another. Even if he survived, the monster incarnate he once was would have vanished into thin air. Shangguanzi sighed softly and said, I wonder where the child was teleported to. I know. Right then, Extreme Fire spoke. Ah. Everyone was stunned. Shangguanzi could vaguely sense that Extreme Fire's expression seemed to have relaxed after hearing that Su Zimo had torn the major transference talisman and escaped. Extreme Fire said, Zimo should have gone to the Dragon Burial Valley? Dragon Burial Valley? I heard that an evil dragon was buried in the Dragon Burial Valley 10,000 years ago. It's an ominous place where patriarchs have fallen and the blood of emperors have been spilled. Why would he head there? Everyone asked hurriedly. Before Extreme Fire could explain, a spirit crane flew in from outside. The spirit crane was filled with an immortal aura and its flesh was intact. It was extremely agile. When it arrived in front of Shangguanzi, It suddenly transformed into a paper crane and floated in her palm. There was another piece of huge news from the cultivation world. Everyone was invigorated. Shangguanzi opened the spirit crane and took a look. Her expression changed gradually. What? Worried about Su Zimo, Yin Beichen took the initiative to ask. Shangguanzi had a grim expression and said in a deep voice, "Extreme fire is right. Zimo should have been teleported to the Dragon Burial Valley. However, for some reason, this news has already spread in the cultivation world." "Ah!" everyone exclaimed. The cultivators present quickly realized what the consequences would be if this news spread. Shangguanzi continued, "The Spirit Crane said that 5 immortal sects, Heavenly Dipper Sect, Chaos Essence Sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace, Sword Sect, and Glass Palace, 2 Fiend Sects, Hidden Death Sect and Malevolent Earth Sect, Formless Monastery of the Buddhist Monasteries and Poison Sect of the Heretical Doctrines have all sent conjoint body mighty figures to head to the North Region's Dragon Burial Valley." Apart from the 8 super sects that everyone had expected, Sword Sect was also involved. That made 9 super sects. Everyone had ugly expressions. All of them knew that Su Zimo was doomed. Elder Gu sighed. There are so many super sects and conjoint body mighty figures joining forces for the sake of a void reversion. They're truly bent on exterminating him. Without another word, Yin Beichen turned to leave. "Where are you going?" Extreme Fire reached out and stopped him. "Dragon Burial Valley." Yin Beichen's voice was cold. Extreme Fire shook his head. "You won't make it in time if you go now. The speed of a conjoint body mighty figure is much faster than you. They will only need a couple of days to head to the North region from the Middle Continent. Furthermore, you're injured. You'll only be courting death if you rush over." "What should we do then? Just wait?" Yin Beichen clenched his fists. Extreme Fire had a strange expression as he murmured, "Let's wait for news. I'm not exactly worried if Zimo returns to Dragon Burial Valley." Chapter 1047, Opportunity. Chapter 1047, Opportunity. At the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley, in the ancient temple. In the cemetery at the backyard of the main hall, an old monk sat on the ground. His beard and brows were white, and he was skinny. Sitting on the ground, he was chanting the rebirth mantra in a low voice. In the cemetery, a burly man with scarlet, disheveled hair and ragged clothes sat inside with rusty chains wrapped around his body. The scarlet-haired burly man leaned against a stone tablet listlessly and was dozing off to the old monk's chanting. "Old monk, you nag here every day. It's fine for the dead, but you're annoying the living to death." The scarlet-haired burly man who was falling asleep grumbled. The old monk ignored him and continued chanting. All of a sudden, the scarlet-haired burly man's expression changed. As though he sensed something, he stood up and the chains on his body rattled. He glared at the void not far away with bright eyes and no signs of fatigue on his face. The chanting suddenly stopped. Seemingly sensing something, the old monk suddenly flicked his sleeves and created a gigantic gap in the void not far away, causing a pile of items to fall out. There were broken lotus stems, shattered lotus leaves, and a bare lotus platform. Immediately after, a figure fell out. It was Su Zimo who tore apart the major transference talisman and escaped from the half-martial ancestor expert D. Fan's hands. Bang! Su Zimo's body slammed heavily onto the ground, and he did not move at all. It was not that he did not want to move, but his body had already lost all signs of life. Although his essence spirit was not destroyed, he could no longer control his body. The scarlet-haired burly man was shocked as he looked at the mangled body. "That's serious." He could tell with a single glance that this body was completely crippled. His bones were shattered and his organs were crushed into mud. His flesh was lifeless without any signs of vitality. Simply put, even if the owner of this body was a conjoint body mighty figure, he wouldn't be able to save it. The power of a conjoint body mighty figure could regrow severed limbs. However, given the extent of damage received by the body, There was no way about it unless Suzimo was a Mahayana patriarch. Every single Mahayana patriarch knew of a divine power, blood rebirth. They could reconstruct their physical bodies with a single drop of blood. The old monk frowned when he saw the dilapidated body. Even the grade 6 creation green lotus was destroyed. The scarlet-haired burly man's expression turned grim. The power that could shatter a grade 6 creation green lotus was probably beyond the conjoint body realm. Could it be an ancestor realm expert? The scarlet-haired burly man's eyes were filled with killing intent, and he was enraged. Although there were no rigid rules in the cultivation world, it did not make sense for an ancestor realm expert to attack a void reversion fatally. Fuck, he's really bullying this lad for not having any backing. The scarlet-haired burly man cursed and his nose quivered. He sniffed the air, and his expression turned even uglier. He grit his teeth and said, "It's the bloodline of the D clan. It's his descendant again." Right then, 2 beams of light flew out from the broken body. It was Suzimo's 2 essence spirits, the scarlet-haired Een spirit and the black-haired essence spirit. Looking at Suzimo's scarlet-haired Een spirit, the burly man's eyes lit up with satisfaction. But soon, he frowned. "Your essence spirit is injured as well?" The scarlet-haired burly man's eyes flashed with rage. "Master." The 2 essence spirits bowed to the old monk before turning to look at the scarlet-haired burly man with conflicted expressions. If Suzimo was not wrong, there was a high chance that the person he once referred to as the red-headed ghost was the culprit for the catastrophe back then, the evil dragon. "What are you looking at?" The red-headed ghost glared at him. "I'm that illumination dragon from back then, so what? You've also drunk my blood for 20 years at the bottom of this valley." When he heard the red-headed ghost's words, Suzimo no longer had any doubts. However, he was truly in no mood to argue with the red-headed ghost. Gazing at the lifeless body on the ground, his heart was filled with sorrow. It was not because he had lost his physical body. He was a void reversion and would not die even if he lost his body. Furthermore, if he lost his body, he could just reconstruct it. It was also not because of how strong this body was and how many years of cultivation were ruined. It was because he had been cultivating the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness since he started cultivating. That body contained traces of Dai Yu. When his bloodline phenomenon was activated to its limits, a blood-colored butterfly was even born. All of that no longer existed. That was the reason why he could not bear to part with it. The red-headed ghost looked at the old monk. "Old monk, let's follow my plan. That's the only way to resolve his crisis." "That's the only way." The old monk sighed slightly. The red-headed ghost shouted at Suzimo, "Hey, lad, do you want this body to recover? You have a solution?" Suzimo was invigorated, and his eyes lit up. "Hee hee." The red-headed ghost chuckled. "Of course there's a way. If you agree, I'll give you a great opportunity. It's way too easy for this body to recover while the true benefits are yet to come." "Speak?" Suzimo calmed down and did not agree immediately. "This body of yours will be managed by this essence spirit from now on." The red-headed ghost pointed at the scarlet-haired Een spirit and said, "Your essence spirit and this body can head to the Dragon Bone Valley. There's a divine spring inside that can heal the injuries of your body and essence spirit. The divine spring of the primordial era has the miraculous effect of regenerating flesh and bones as well as reviving the dead. While it has long gone extinct, there's a spring in the Dragon Bone Valley." Suzimo knew that the red-headed ghost would never lie to him about something like this. Since he said that the primordial divine spring had such an effect, it must be true. The red-headed ghost continued, "If your body recovers, you'll have to join the dragon race and cultivate in the Dragon Bone Valley. No one will dare to bully you to this extent again in the future." With the backing of one of the primordial 9 races, the dragon race, who would dare to provoke him? Not even the 9 immortal sects, 7 fiend sects, and 6 Buddhist monasteries could do it. Suzimo pondered for a moment before asking, "What about my black-haired essence spirit?" That was the key. If his body was restored to its original state and only belonged to the scarlet-haired Ain spirit, it would mean that his entire body, from his bloodline to his essence spirit, would be a complete dragon. Su Zimo was born as a human and wanted to establish the Dao for the masses. He did not want to be reduced to an alien race completely. However, this was indeed a tremendous opportunity for him. Naturally, the greatest benefit was for his body to recover to its original state. If he could cultivate in the Dragon Bone Valley, it might be of great help to his cultivation of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness as well. There was an essence spirit secret skill and a Dharmic art in the yang spirit section. The Dharmic art was barren. Su Zimo merely had a rough understanding of barren and could only release it simply. He could not unleash its full power, nor could he control its range perfectly. Up till now, he still could not understand the mysteries of that essence spirit secret skill. If he could enter the Dragon Bone Valley to cultivate, it would be extremely helpful for him to master barren and comprehend the essence spirit secret skill. After all, the Yin spirit and Yang spirit sections of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness were adapted from the cultivation of the Dragon King Desolate Ocean. Chapter 1048, Two True Bodies. Chapter 1048, Two True Bodies. Su Zimo asked, "What about my black-haired essence spirit?" "Doesn't matter." Waving his hand, the red-headed ghost pouted his lips nonchalantly. "In any case, this dragon body will be your true body from now on. At most, your black-haired essence spirit can just refine a physical body and cultivate it as a clone." "No." The old monk shook his head and suddenly said, "The dragon race body can be cultivated as a clone. This black-haired essence spirit will be Zimo's true body." "Bullshit," the red-headed ghost replied in a worked-up manner. "That body is connected to the lad's bloodline, so it will naturally be a true body of the dragon race. There's only the black-haired essence spirit left here that doesn't even have a body. How can it be a true body?" The old monk shook his head and said resolutely, "However, he's a human after all. That's why the body reconstructed by the black-haired essence spirit will be his true body. His dragon race body will be a clone." The two of them started arguing over this matter. The old monk was unwilling to back down as well. Both of them were clear about Su Zimo's potential. If he was allowed to grow, he would definitely become an extremely terrifying existence that could change Tianhuang mainland. The reason why the red-headed ghost wanted the scarlet-haired Yin spirit to be the true body was naturally for the good of the dragon race. As for the old monk, his intention was also to retain a hope for the human race in the future. "Master," red-headed ghost, "stop arguing." Su Zimo's gaze was resolute, as though he had already made up his mind. He said slowly, "Be it the scarlet-haired Yin spirit or the black-haired essence spirit's body, they are not clones. Both are my true bodies." Both of them were briefly stunned before they understood what was happening. If an ordinary cultivator were to refine a clone, they would at most inject a stream of spirit consciousness into it. It would be just a remnant thought. However, Su Zimo's situation was extremely special. He had truly cultivated two essence spirits. Even if they cultivated separately, their essence spirits would not affect one another. If both essence spirits were him, how could there be a clone? Since they were destined to cultivate separately, he would cultivate two true bodies in the future. The old monk and the red-headed ghost stopped arguing. Both of them could accept this outcome. Of course, there was another important reason why Su Zimo agreed to let the scarlet-haired Yin spirit bring his body to the Dragon Bone Valley. "Red-headed ghost, I have a condition," Su Zimo suddenly said. The red-headed ghost raised his brow and glanced askance at Su Zimo. "What other conditions do you want to make despite this amazing bargain?" "I want to bring someone along," Su Zimo replied. "No way." The red-headed ghost rejected without hesitation. "What kind of place do you think Dragon Bone Valley is? Do you think it's a place anyone can head to?" Su Zimo thought for a moment. To be precise, he's not human. He's a WYRM. He absorbed some dragon chi, and will definitely be able to transform into a true dragon in the future. Another important reason why Suzimo wanted to head to the Dragon Bone Valley was because of Solitary Cloud. In order to save him, Solitary Cloud ended up in such a state where his fate was unknown. He had to give Solitary Cloud a fortuitous encounter in order to live up to the latter's undying loyalty. No, it's even worse if it's a WYRM. The red-headed ghost pouted. Let's put it this way. Even someone like you who drank my dragon blood for 20 years has an impure bloodline. It's already not bad that I can send you in. What the hell does a WYRM that absorbed some dragon chi to cultivate even amount to? In other words, even if he can enter, he'll be bullied to death by the true dragons of Dragon Bone Valley. Suzimo did not back down at all. If anyone bullies him, I'll naturally be there. However, I have to bring him over. If Solitary Cloud could cultivate in an environment like Dragon Bone Valley, his chances of transforming into a true dragon would increase greatly. Kid, you only know how to push your luck. Fuck. In order to save you, I even have to add a little WYRM snake into the mix. What the hell am I even doing? The red-headed ghost cursed and glanced at Suzimo from the corner of his eyes. When he saw that the latter was not backing down, he mumbled, "Fine. We'll bring him along." However, he veered the topic away. Let me make things clear first. There's no kind soul in the dragon race. Don't blame me if he gets bullied to death inside. Thank you. Suzimo cupped his fists. After a brief pause, Suzimo continued, "Red-headed ghost, I have another condition." What? The red-headed ghost jumped up in anger as the chains on his body rattled. Blowing his beard and glaring, he said, "Rascal. Don't push your luck. If you push me too far, I won't even care about you anymore." Suzimo said selfishly, "Since he's coming in with me, he has to follow me to that primordial divine spring to recuperate." No way. The red-headed ghost rejected him flatly and glared at Suzimo angrily, grinding his teeth. "Do you think that anyone can soak in that divine spring? I'll have to persuade endlessly just to let you soak in that divine spring, and now you even want to add a little WYRM snake?" Suzimo thought for a moment. As long as you can save him, it's fine if you don't let him soak in the primordial divine spring. Leave it to me. It's just a lousy WYRM. I'll revive it with a single drop of my blood. The red-headed ghost said confidently. Only when he heard that, Suzimo carefully removed Solitary Cloud from his storage bag and placed it in front of the red-headed ghost. The red-headed ghost took a look and his face darkened, almost cursing. That fellow's injuries were almost the same as Suzimo's. His chest was punctured, his heart was shattered, and his essence spirit was almost destroyed. He was hanging on with a single breath and could die at any moment. The WYRM might die with a single drop of his blood instead. Creak, creak. The red-headed ghost ground his teeth in silence. Suzimo shrugged. "Look, you can't do it either. In that case, I'll have to bring him to soak in that primordial hot spring." "It's a divine spring." The red-headed ghost rolled his eyes and scolded. "Hot your head." "That won't do." The red-headed ghost pondered for a long time before shaking his head in rejection. "I won't be going either then." Suzimo decided to go all out. The old monk stood at the side and smiled without saying anything. The red-headed ghost was hopping mad but could not do anything to Suzimo. After a moment, the red-headed ghost said, "I can agree to your condition, but you can't raise any other conditions." He was truly afraid. If Suzimo were to go crazy and bring along a nest of monsters or random animals like leopards, wolves, tigers, etc., Dragon Bone Valley would be in complete chaos. "All right." Suzimo agreed. The red-headed ghost heaved a sigh of relief. "Fine. I'll agree to your two conditions." Taking a deep breath, the red-headed ghost cut his fingertip and a drop of scarlet blood fell, emanating a terrifying aura with a tremendous life force. He conjured hand seals continuously and let out a series of strange sounds. The drop of blood hovered in midair and did not dissipate. A moment later, the drop of blood changed gradually and turned into a scarlet divine dragon. Its horns were towering and lifelike. "Go on." The red-headed ghost murmured. The tiny divine dragon let out a long cry and turned into a scarlet beam of light that tore through the air and disappeared quickly. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.